Do I have any emails I need to answer before the show starts? Let's see. A memo from the board. I'll ignore that since they're basically irrelevant now. And some spam from Solstice Technologies asking me to invest in them. I'll delete that on principle. A press release from Mr. Gold about Nessie's Brasserie. Oh, good Godzilla. WHG3 is opening that pub despite the stunt old April 1st. He must still have clout with the board. Oh, boy. Yeah, what's this? A message from Gary about what to do about Jess? Oy vey. Okay. All right. Let's check Jimmy's secure server now. Can't have Winter or the board spying on us. Hold on. Here's an email from Nick Tatopoulos. It's dated before Heat's run-in with Crazy Bernice. It says, Nate, Ozaki talked to me and the rest of Heat about the shady dealings on the island. Given what's happened with the Blob and the other creatures the last few months, I agree with Ozaki that Winter is up to something on the beta site. Heat will patrol around that island later this morning. I'll let you know if we find anything. Signed, Nick. Oh boy, did they find something, all right. And here's one from yesterday. Nate, La Carcania attacking me and my team wasn't an accident. Okay. I'll explain later. Contact me soon. Signed, Nick. Man, I need to check this more often.
Check what more often, Mr. Marchand?
Just my email is all.
Always starting your day by logging into the company-provided email account, Mr. Marchand. Good man. Can't miss any of those important memos and marching Marchand.
Oh, look at you. I made the funny.
Sure did, but as I was saying, Mr. Winter and the board send emails daily to all employees with their marching orders. My favorite is Mr. Winter's weekly updates and pep talks titled, It's a Winterful Life. Clever, if I do say so myself.
Oh, jeez. The boss needs to leave the puns to me.
That's actually what leads me to why I'm here, Mr. Marchand. Remember how I said Mr. Winter had big plans for you and KIJU? Looks like I'm a poet and didn't even know it. What do you think about that, Mr. Marchand?
Hashtag dad joke.
Well, as of this morning, Mr. Winter has decided to make you, Nate, the island's media master. What do you say about that?
The what?
Media master. Well, it's essentially just a fancy name for head of media.
You have one of those?
Damn straight, and you're it.
So, this is a promotion?
You bet your life. Well, metaphorically speaking, of course.
Well, this is a surprise, especially considering I don't think we had one of those before.
Oh, now it shouldn't be, Mr. Marchand. You've been working harder than a cowboy on a cattle run to produce your fine program and curate the island's film library with the greatest, most wonderful, most fantastic kaiju films of all time.
Okay. I thought you were pouring it on a little thick there, but yeah, I'd like to keep doing that, honestly.
I assure you, we will never want you to end your show, Mr. Marchand. It's quite popular with the tourists, and if there's anything that we know, a happy tourist is a surefire moneymaker.
What about Jimmy?
Oh, don't you worry about old Jim, bro. Ms. Kawhi is extending a different offer to him today.
And what's that?
Let's just say Mr. Winter has come into possession of several relics important to the history of kaiju. And those things are going to be of great interest to Mr. Crane.
So, you're giving him more toys for his garage?
Yes and no. They're museum pieces, artifacts, if you will. We want him to personally inspect them.
I see. Well, I hope you understand. This is a lot for me to consider, and I'm still a bit busy, of course. So, I'll let you know by the end of the month. Is that okay?
Perfectly fine. Take as much time as you need, Mr. Marchand, but I reckon you ain't gonna want to pass this up.
Noted.
It's good to see you're still enjoying those fine cocoa beans we gave you a while back.
Yeah, they are delicious.
Well, pardon the pun, but that's just a taste of what Mr. Winter has in store for you.
Well, if he ever gets off the dang beta site, tell him this promotion is just one of a few things I want to talk to him about.
I guarantee you, Mr. Marchand, if you take that offer, you will always have Mr. Winter's ear.
You're making this deal sweeter than the cocoa.
Nate, can I call you Nate? Did I ever tell you how I wanted to be a country music star? Because wheelin' and dealin' and kiss stealin' is my middle name.
Maybe. Anyway, I have to head to the studio. Damon Noyes is joining us again today.
Well, good luck, Mr. Marchand. You're gonna need it.
I don't trust Winter or his goons, but maybe I can use this to figure out what he's up to. Live from the KIJU studios in beautiful Ogasawara, this is the Monster Island Film Vault, episode 67, Little Shop of Horrors, 1986, featuring Damon Noyes. Hello, Kaiju lovers, and welcome to the Monster Island Film Vault, a podcast seeking entertainment and enlightenment through tokusatsu. I am your host, the Monster Island Film Curator, Nate Marchand. Yes, hello to you as well, Jimmy. Yeah, Jimmy, I know. You know, alien plants. You want to talk to us about the alien plants that you've run into, but you know what? I have someone better in mind to talk about that, no offense, Jimmy, and that is none other, coming back, having not left the island apparently, is mailman by day, actor by night, the puppet master himself, Damon Noyes.
Welcome to your night of terror. And comedy. Don't forget comedy.
Comedy? Or have you been hanging out at Dr. Dourif's basement or something?
Absolutely not. I haven't.
Okay.
I haven't seen anything. I went to the beta site.
Okay.
And,
I didn't know they offered tours there. How did you get there?
They don't.
Oh, Jimmy, it was you. You sure you want to admit that on the air?
I didn't want to out Jimmy, but
well, he's outing himself. You know what, Jimmy? You might want to just keep it down. Just keep it down. All right. Yeah, I don't need you to get arrested. All right. Mm.
Well, he let me use one of those skiffs that pilot over between the islands, and it was so they had the transponder on it so that it'll allow you into the boat dock. So
I see. So after all the excitement right after, I should say, the previous broadcast on the giant claw.
Yeah. Well, I went over there specifically because I wanted to see, where they beached themselves. And, I was very curious. I would maybe get a souvenir, like a feather, maybe. I don't know. Didn't find anything.
Kaiju tooth or something?
Yeah.
Or a bit of kaiju tooth, because they're kind of huge.
I'd heard that obviously the weirder things are over there on the beta site.
Yes.
And I was curious about Audrey 2 or Tui.
Tui, yes,
as he's called, and since he does apparently identify as male,
yes,
because I assume it's like an it because it's a plant. It's not a
but it's sentient. So it's Audrey's weird.
Very, very, very weird.
Audrey's weird. Although the name was given him.
True.
So
True.
But, we haven't quite started the discussion yet. But anyway, you went looking for Audrey.
I went looking for
Audrey 2.
And I found Tui.
Oh, how big was he?
Quite large, actually.
Apparently, was it that you said you found Kaiju Audrey?
I found Kaiju Audrey.
Oh, no.
But interestingly enough, they had some kind of spray system that was keeping an anti-hormone spray, whatever, keeping it from budding.
I bet that was something developed by Dr. Dourif. Wouldn't surprise me.
All I know, and he had his enclosure had a mute feature. so that if he started using his persuasive abilities, that they could just it would immediately kick in. And so he was very conscious.
They silenced that silver tongue.
Absolutely, but it was nice seeing him in person and being able to at least hold a somewhat civil conversation until he started asking me what I actually wanted.
Oh, yeah, that's when you run the other way. What I'm a little bit scared of, I have to be honest with you, is God help us. And I'm putting this out there, so Winter, the board, Mr. Gold, all of you, just so you know, I'm a little scared of the idea of Audrey 2 being moved to the main site and getting anywhere close to Biollante.
Now
just
that
saying.
hybrid would be interesting.
Yeah, except I don't think we need little, like, Biollante, Audrey children running around.
Now, we know that Biollante is mostly beneficent towards humanity, having a human soul DNA grafted onto there.
Yes.
The hybrids might be more conducive to keeping us alive instead of as a food source.
Possibly. I don't know.
And mingling G cells with
Audrey's space cells.
Audrey, yeah, it might calm it down a little bit.
Who knows? Or it might make it angrier. Who knows?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you never know.
Yeah,
you never know when you make it hybrids, but I'm sure Dr. Dourif would have something to say about that.
Are you kidding me? Oh my gosh! Speak of the devil. We say his name enough because I guess he listens. So he wants to come in and what is it, Jimmy? All right, Damon. He wants to be on the show. My apologies.
No, that's okay.
I know this is the first time you've met him. He's a little bit weird, but
we're talking about plants. It makes perfect sense that you would want.
Yeah, because he's the resident kaiju horticulturist now. It's not just the Matango anymore for him. So let's see what he has to say.
Hello, Nathan.
Hello, Dr. Dourif, or should I call you Dante now?
Well, as long as you don't call me late for my mushroomy dinner, I'll respond to anything you choose to call me, and I do mean anything.
That's not creepy at all, no.
Yeah, well, this is your first time talking to him, isn't it, Damon?
Yeah,
Have you ever met him before?
No. Hello, Dr. Dourif.
Hello there, Nate's friend. I must admit I don't exactly know who you are, although I must say your voice does sound somewhat familiar.
Well, if you had listened to the podcast for any length of time, I've shown up a couple of times, I guess.
Oh, sir. Sir, I've listened to every episode multiple times, sometimes while I'm sleeping, sometimes while I'm showering, sometimes while I'm doing both at the same time.
Sleeps in his tub. Why am I not surprised? Anyway, did you have something to contribute to our conversation today? Because that's what Jimmy told me. You're calling in because we're talking about Little Shop of Horrors.
Oh, yes. I was listening to the live show whilst clipping my toenails. They did need it, And, well, I figured since it was a plant-based monster, it'd be kind of weird to have an episode of your show about a plant monster and not have me piping in. It is, after all, a most beloved tradition.
Yes.
Beloved, yes.
Have you done any work with Audrey too? Whichever one. She's been on the she, we're not sure yet, is on the beta site, and I'm hearing rumors that the Winter and the board are planning on moving him to the main site.
Winter? Who is this a person? Are you talking about a season?
Cameron Winter, he's the new boss.
Cameron Winter? I've never heard the name before.
Anyway, that's not important. Tell us about the work you've done with Audrey too.
Well, you see, many years ago, there was an outbreak. As you know, once you snip the buds off of those Audrey plants, they procreate like planty-type rabbits, don't they?
Yes.
And they spread across the world, and so naturally I took interest. Well, maybe maybe a bit of interest and also a bit of sympathy. You see, people were rounding them up and destroying them before they could grow to giant size. It was murder, Mr. Marchand, murder. They were killing them. They were burning them. Could you imagine something so beautiful, something so majestic, so deeply destructive, killed? Could you imagine? Why would they do that?
Preemptive saving the species, the human race? I mean, I understand they're an intelligent plan, but, they want to eat us. And
Going to pretend like I didn't hear that, Mr. Noyes. Going to pretend like I didn't hear that. Anyway, talking just to you now, Mr. Marchand, just to you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I guess we're friends now.
Now, I thought we were friends all along. What does this mean for us?
Yeah.
Oh,
sure, Donnie. Sure, Donnie. Yeah.
Oh, Donnie, I quite like that. Well, anyway, I'm blushing a bit. I'm sorry. Let me just recompose myself. Well, anyway, where was I? I was talking about rounding up some of the surviving plants. You see, I've been raising them on one of the beta sites, keeping them away from people because, well, they do have a nasty tendency to rip them apart and consume their blood. But I've been keeping them safe and studying them, keeping them at a manageable size. We have so much fun together. We even sing together sometimes. That mean green mother song is quite the earworm. You must agree.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it was nominated for an Oscar, so I take it you have more children? Not just the Matango?
Oh, I wouldn't quite put them on the same level as my dearly beloved mushroom children, but maybe in more of the second cousin twice removed territory. But don't tell them that. They're very sensitive.
So you're their uncle.
Oh, yes, I'm Uncle Dante to them. Uncle Dante, it has a delightful ring to it, don't you think?
Yeah, sure. And with that, I think Damon, we'll move on. Thank you for stopping by, Donnie. We're gonna finish talking about the movie. I'm sure you'll have a good time.
Oh, you know me. I'll be listening. I'm not at the beta site right now. I'm actually with my wonderful children underground, and as you know, we're always listening, always down here, always waiting. Good luck with the rest of your broadcast.
And that's enough from you. Okay.
Wow. That's an interesting employee you got there.
Yeah. I assure you, he's weird, but he's harmless. As far as I know, he hasn't killed anybody. I don't think he would.
Yeah.
He's just weird.
Yeah. Okay.
He's just weird.
Weird is okay.
Yeah, weird is okay. But speaking of weird, we've been hinting at it. By the way, I'm glad that you got back from the beta site safely.
Oh yes.
There's so many weird kaiju over there.
Indeed.
Did you find a souvenir? Did you find that souvenir you were looking for? I forgot to ask.
Unfortunately, no. And I seem to have developed a little bit of indigestion from the residual effects of the antimatter shield that was used by Bernice. And maybe a little bit of radiation poisoning. I don't know.
Yeah, it sounds like your allergies are acting up a little bit there, which is a little unfortunate considering that we are covering our first ever musical on the show today. This is your Patreon-sponsored episode. We are talking about Little Shop of Horrors from 1986. It's funny how this came about because I was doing a live stream and I just said, like, man, I really want to talk about this movie in Amerikaiju, but I have to make cuts. I got to make decisions. It was a hard decision to cut it. And you're just like, you know what?
I'm going to do it.
I'm going to do it. So here you go, Marchand. I'm sponsoring it. You get it on the schedule this year. Anyway, I'm like, yes.
Okay, Mr. Moneybags is coming in, gonna throw you a bone.
A big old bone, yes, because I'm a big fan of this movie, and I basically said, like, I don't need an excuse to talk about this, but I want an excuse to talk about this. So excuse has been
Everybody
given.
wants. And, it is one of the greatest just adaptations from stage to movie. As a stage actor myself and just starting to get into movies, it's incredibly difficult to make that transition when a stage play is so successful and then make it into a movie where it is just as successful. I mean, granted, this wasn't initially successful, but
it was considered an underperformer.
And considering how much they spent on it and the fact that they had to go back and do reshoots for the ending.
The numbers I was seeing, although there's some disagreement over how much it actually cost, most of the estimates landed around $25 million to make.
Yes. Yeah.
And it made about $39 million at the box office.
Yeah, not a winner, unfortunately.
No, it was considered an underperformer, but then it found its audience like a lot of movies do. It found its audience in home media.
You put stuff out on video, you put it at the Blockbuster or the little mom and pop ones, and that box art gets you. And you just said, what the hell is this? And you don't know going in, it's a musical about a man-eating plant, and it's funny, and the music is catchy.
Yes. Yeah, especially if you hadn't seen I think for a lot of people, this was their introduction to the idea that this weirdo little Roger Corman 2-day wonder film got made into a musical.
Yeah. Well, nobody had heard about it before, because the Roger Corman thing kind of hit and disappeared, which is what it was supposed to do. Hits, makes money, and goes away. And Howard Ashman and Alan Menken I don't know how they looked at that movie and said, we can make some stage productions out of this. How did you look at that original movie and say that?
Now, well, let's talk about that a little bit. But first, Damon,
yes,
give us a plot rundown on this movie for those unfortunate people who have not seen it yet.
All right. Let's see if I can do this in one take.
All right, Jimmy, this is a musical, so cue the music.
Meek flower shop assistant Seymour pines for coworker Audrey. During a total eclipse of the sun, he discovers an unusual plant he names Audrey 2 in honor of her, which feeds only on human flesh and blood. The growing plant attracts a great deal of business to Mushnik's flower shop, which was previously struggling. After Seymour feeds Audrey's boyfriend, Oren Scribello, DDS, to the plant, after his accidental death, he must come up with more bodies for the increasingly bloodthirsty plants.
Yes, that's a musical. The feel-good musical of the year. Well, the theatrical version is the feel-good movie of the year.
When it premiered in 1982, it off Broadway. It wasn't just off Broadway. It was 2 steps off.
That's what it actually says in the credits. It says based on the off Broadway, because apparently that's a thing. I have friends in the theater world. I know a bit about the theater world, but apparently there are actually different levels. There's Broadway, off Broadway, and off Broadway.
And the thing about that is a lot of your outer, experimental plays start on off Broadway. Depending on the buzz, they get pushed to off Broadway. And if the buzz is really good, if they continue to sell out and it continues to get play and the critics love it, it will get brought onto Broadway, which is what happened with this particular play. And it did really well. Ellen Green, the Audrey of the movie, is the original Audrey from the off Broadway production. And her pipes cannot be reasoned with because
I've got notes on her and her singing, but I do want to give a quick rundown. So this particular version, this film, has a really interesting history because it's kind of several steps removed from the source material. Yeah, because I found out that because we mentioned it a little bit, there was a Roger Corman film in 1960 made in 2 days on recycled sets.
Gotta love it.
And I'm not going to get too much into that version because that could be a whole episode unto itself.
Indeed.
But it was the first major appearance, I guess, of Jack Nicholson, a very young Jack Nicholson.
Yeah.
And it had basically the same story, and most of the same characters. Like you pointed out, it came, it thundered, it left, and then, they found it. But even that was not original. I found a couple of sources that said that there are some really interesting literary roots for this thing. One that they said was the most direct inspiration, and I tried to find this. I wanted to read these short stories, but I'm like, I have to buy whole books in order to do that, and I'm a little pressed for time. So
that's a little unfortunate as well.
Yeah. But they mentioned Green Thoughts, which is a 1932 short story by John Collier that has a man-eating plant, and a Hollywood writer named Dennis McDougall, my apologies if I said that wrong, has suggested that Griffith, the original writer, was influenced by an Arthur C. Clarke story from 1956.
Really? That one I did not know.
Yeah, it was called The Reluctant Orchid.
That's interesting.
Which, in turn, The Reluctant Orchid was inspired by a 1905 H.G. Wells story called The Flowering of the Strange Orchid. It's just this spiral into the ground.
It's man-eating plants all the way down.
Man. It's Audrey's all the way down.
Wow.
Boy. Yeah. So there you go. So there's a lineage, a history, you might say. And, we mentioned it cost $25 million to make, which was blows the original the original movie's budget out of the water. It was made for $30,000, which, accounting for inflation of 2019, which means it would be twice this much now, it was $240,000.
Still not a lot.
Yeah, it's still not a lot. It's still not a lot. So basically, the stage musical came about in 1982, and you had some things to share with us about the Broadway version, which I have, well, not the Broadway, but the stage version, which I have seen. There was a troupe that came through and performed it here on the island right before COVID, which was really cool.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they did it in the Arboretum, which was really fun.
That's actually quite a good plan. If you can swing it, that would be a good place to do that. Mm-hmm. You don't want to hurt the other plants though, and there's a lot to really get the effect. There's at the end, if you have the wherewithal to do it, and the money and the talent, to have the vines coming out into the theater where people are sitting and really push forward that I'm taking over kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. There was talk about having one of the actual plant monsters on the island play Audrey too, and that was very quickly shut down because
I'm sure
OSHA and other things, honestly. But,
well,
safety regulations.
They are not mind controlling plants, but they are definitely very persuasive.
Yes. But tell us a little bit about the stage version that directly inspired this. So you had all of those short stories, Corman, 1982 stage musical off Broadway.
Okay. Howard Ashman and basically wrote the play. He also wrote the lyrics to all the songs. Alan Menken, of course, brought in his talent as a composer and composed the music. And they were very, very conscious that they needed to, because of the humor involved, and they didn't want to make it modern. They said, okay, well, where do we need to put this? The 50s is a little too far behind. And the humor in the 50s was a little bit different. So they said, hey, let's throw it into the 60s. You have rock and roll is now an established thing. You still have doo-wop going on. You've got girl groups, you've got boy groups. Let's solidify it there. The music is interesting. And voila, they had a hit because the people who went to see it weren't just young people. These are I don't want to say the glitterati going to the off Broadway, but these are the people. These are people who lived through the 60s. Mm-hmm. So they immediately clued into that music. Mm-hmm. And let me tell you, having the Greek chorus of Chiffon,
that made me happy because that's a very traditional literary thing to do. Now, you were going to bring up their names. I'm sorry. What are their names?
Okay, you know what? I just completely lost them. I know it's Ronette, Crystal, and Chiffon. I believe.
Yes.
There we go. The unique thing that Ashman did is having them both a part of the story as the urchins and outside of the story commenting on it and singing about it. So it was a very different than the Greek chorus or Greek muses, where they would merely comment and tell you about the doom that was coming. And so
the Greek chorus traditionally was there for the sake of the audience. They were kind of talking to the audience. I actually found out that the first instance, that's why we call it a Greek chorus. It was used by Sophocles in a play called Antigone. Yep. But you've seen it everywhere. Shakespeare did it on occasion. He would have choruses that were addressing the audience. There are films that do it. It's very popular in musicals. Very popular.
Here, I think it was done more for comedic effect and for the uniqueness of doing this in a 1980s, about the 1960s format. I've seen it done in Shakespeare where it's not called for, where they will have people saying things to the audience that aren't supposed to be said to the audience, but it's still within that framework.
Within the text of the play.
Exactly. So here they took he took this idea of the Greek chorus and made it, I guess, fun, because the girls, when they're not urchins, they are glammed out. They are 1960s girl group.
Oh my gosh! In the movie, I know are you talking about the stage play or the movie right now?
Both. They do this
because
in the
movie, they're constant. They have a new outfit.
Yes, every song has a new outfit.
Yes, Jimmy, I know. It's like Padme in episode 1. She has a new outfit in every scene, and they all have new outfits every scene.
Their outfits are very functional. They can be hidden under the baggier urchin clothes, and they, in a good version of the stage play, unlike most community theaters can get away with, they will be in their super nice outfit first for the opening Little Shop of Horrors theme song, and then they
Little Shop of Horrors.
Exactly. They'll go behind some kind of partition, and they will put on their urchin clothes on top of that, so that when they do have time, they can shed both sets of clothes and put on the new
and you
set
know this because we should have led with this. You were involved in a production of this.
I was involved in 2 productions of this.
Oh, really?
The first time was way back at Community Theater,
which was a big reason why you requested this film.
Yes, absolutely, because I absolutely love it.
Plus puppets.
Well, that's the side benefit, because Tui is a puppet of various sizes. But yeah, the first time I played Orin Scrivello.
You'll be a dentist.
I did started doing a pastiche of Steve Martin's version of it. And the director took me aside and said, "We can't have you doing that. Please do something else." And so, because Steve Martin chose Elvis, a really stupid Elvis.
Well, yeah, see, that's the interesting thing, because I listened to, my gosh, the Blu-ray that I have in the film vault for this. It's got commentaries for days. But,
I know.
But Frank Oz actually said that Steve Martin, who played Orin DDS, took him aside and he said, "Hey, I don't just want to be Fonzie, the Fonz."
Right.
For those who don't know, Happy Days, it was a 70s sitcom. But if you ever heard the term jumping the shark, that's where it came from. But
indeed,
he said, "I don't want to do that." So he worked really hard to make his version, his version of Orin, a unique character. Now, Frank Oz did say that if he took inspiration from anybody, yes, it was Elvis. There is a bit of Elvis in Martin's take on Orin.
It's the hair. It is definitely that is very much an Elvis in the 60s hair.
But otherwise, he's just kind of greaser.
And remarkably, I mean, for a guy who went to medical school to be a dentist, he is remarkably stupid.
Yeah, which I think is the joke.
And that's in the play as well. He is not the brightest bulb, and it's wonderful. So I did more of a Southern Hick version of it.
Can you share a little bit of your take on Orin with us?
Well, let me tell you something, boy. I know you. You're that playing guy, ain't you? Oh, it's got to be here, ain't it? Oh, that's a nice plane. Big. What's it eat?
You sound like my friend Michael.
That's gonna hurt. That's gonna come back and bite you.
Let it. I could take it.
Anyway, so that was that. It was a college production.
Who were you the second time?
The second time was in 2019, I think.
Oh, just a few short years ago.
Yeah, and I unfortunately I did try out for Orin, and I did not get. I got beat out by a younger, much more talented gentleman.
Oh, okay.
Which is fine. I mean, that's the nature of community theater. However, the director, who is a friend of mine, he said, your comic timing is too perfect, so we are going to have you as the first customer. No, the first customer.
Oh, the first customer. Played by, what is it, Christopher Guest in the movie?
Christopher Guest. And he said, I want you to do Christopher Guest. He had me read for Christopher, as Christopher Guest, and I went, my, that's an unusual plant. Wherever did you get it? And he said, I want you to be basically a cartoon character. I went, I can do that.
Yeah, which is funny because that was kind of the process that Christopher Guest went through when they were making this movie, because, and you can actually see his first take on the Blu-ray in the deleted scenes. And because Frank Oz said the first time he read the lines as the customer, he did it more naturalistically, and he had to take him and say, like, no, I need you to be a cartoon.
Yep.
And then he went through and he's like, my, what an unusual plant you have. Yeah.
and Christopher Guest is perfect because he's such a quiet, unassuming actor or a quiet, unassuming man in his normal life. And he puts on these faces to be these characters, like Count Rugen from Princess Bride.
Oh,
completely different. I mean, just, a sociopath. And now he's a 1960s, businessman, but completely vapid, devoid of soul, with this soulless smile on his face and this staring eyes that have absolutely nothing behind them.
Yes.
And they had me come in from behind the set. So you see me walk by the window. And when they had me do it the first time, the director starts laughing so hard he had to stop us. And I said, and we all come out and say, what? And he says, Damon, you look like a Muppet walking back behind. I said, well, I can change that. He says, don't keep doing it. It's brilliant. So I did my little Muppet walk, and then I back up, turn, notice the plant. It's like, what is that? And then I rush to the front door and I walk in, and I do almost pitch perfect Christopher Guest throughout the whole thing. And
oh my gosh.
And so I did that scene. I got to listen to LeDoux, which is one of my favorite ones, because it's mostly spoken word with a doo-wop.
Yes.
Underpining. Then my scene was over and I thought, okay, I'm just in the chorus for the rest of this. What am I going to do? And what is not in the stage play, but is in the original 1960s movie, the masochistic patient for Dr. Orin Scrivello, which was the role that Jack Nicholson played, which was named, let me see, I've got it right here in my notes.
Because they changed it in the movie.
Yes. Jack Nicholson's name was Wilberforce.
Yeah, Wilberforce. Yeah, but it's Arthur Denton in the movie, which just made me laugh. The Douglas Adams fan in me laughed. It was like, like Arthur Dent?
Well, Denton is also the covering of the interior of a tooth. So that's the other reason why they went with that. But yes, not in the stage musical at all. Was never put in.
No, but they put it in the movie because it was in the original 60s version.
And it was funny. It was another way to do a funny bit.
Yes, because oh my gosh, that's something we need to talk about with this movie, because I'm just going to say this. I know they went through several possibilities for who to direct this, but Frank Oz was the perfect one to do this. I mean, you should have saw some of the things. Like, they were considering John Landis. The craziest one was they thought about Martin Scorsese.
And that makes sense. Martin Scorsese was a protege of Roger Corman.
Yes. But it was funny because, like, I read in one of my sources that Scorsese wanted to film the movie in 3D and things like that. But they ended up going with Frank Oz. And honestly, I'm glad they went with Frank Oz, because his puppetry experience with the Muppets, I'm sure, came in very handy. In fact, he brought in a lot of people from Jim Henson to help him with this, including Brian Henson, Jim Henson's son. Actually helped with the larger versions of Audrey.
By that point, Jim Henson had died of pneumonia.
Not then. I think it was in the.
No, he died. He died in the early 80s. He died the same day that Sammy Davis Jr. died, and that was in 1982 or 83. So the Jim Henson Creature Shop was being run by.
You just got fact checked by Jimmy.
Excuse me.
He died in 1990.
It was 1990, really? Because, God, I remember it being earlier. Damn. All right. Fact check.
Yeah, I remembered that because I was like, wait a minute. Didn't they make a big deal about the fact that he died right before Muppet Christmas Carol? That was kind of a big deal.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. I was. I'm thinking it. Yeah. Okay. Mea culpa. I was wrong.
Hey,
However,
it's a badge of honor to get fact checked by Jimmy on this show.
This is true. It had to happen sooner or later.
Yeah.
However, Jim Henson himself did not work on the movie at all, or on the puppets. So we're getting back to my other role. Our director added back in that particular scene because he wanted me to be a patient being tortured by Oren Scrivello. And so that scene opens with me in the chair, him, half on the chair, just grinding away at me and me screaming in pain and then me running out. And then Seymour, kid who doesn't really matter.
Oh, yeah, so you were in the movie, it was the little girl.
Yes. And so they kind of combined the two roles.
Which the girl in the movie was Jim Henson's daughter.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's Heather? Right. Heather Henson.
Heather Henson. She had the big contraption on her face.
Yeah. Fantastic. Gotta love it.
Like I was saying, the perfect director. Oh, wait, did you have something else?
No, I'm good.
Okay. I wanted to jump off of that because one of the things that's amazing about the movie is not only did they have the perfect director, they have quite possibly the perfect cast for this, including a lot of celebrity cameos, one of whom is Bill Murray as the masochistic patient for Dr. Oren.
Indeed.
Which is so great because Dr. Oren's is a sadist. So, they're scene together because you have these two geniuses of comedy doing a scene together in this movie. And for what I understand, what Martin did was scripted, but once they go into the operating room, all of Bill Murray's lines are ad-libbed.
Yep. Everything he did, everything he said, all his little bits, completely off the cuff. He had a little baggie of the mouth cotton.
Yes.
in his shirt, and he just kept putting that in, and he's looking in the mirror as he's doing it. And Steve doesn't know what's going on because he's busy doing his shtick.
Yeah.
And so he's like, "Oh, wow, you're already okay. Let's go."
Yeah. So you have these two comedy geniuses doing this scene together, and when I watch it, I was like, "This scene is the unstoppable force in the immovable object." It's that old joke, masochist says to the sadist, "Hurt me." Sadist says no.
Yeah. And that's what's so brilliant.
It's like, this is what happens when the masochist goes into the sadist. The sadist will not be happy because the masochist is happy.
Oh, yes. And they showed that perfectly. The look on Steve Martin's face when he realizes what he's doing is causing pleasure rather than pain is an actual reaction that a true sadist would have. It's like, get out.
Yeah. And then this was the crazy thing with Frank Oz's commentary. He remembers how many takes a lot of the shots took.
Yeah.
It's kind of like one of what you would think would be one of the simpler scenes. He said took 73 takes. So it's like, what you're seeing here, that's take 73, which was the scene where bigger Audrey was pulling himself toward the cash register and getting in the cash register to get the dime to use the payphone. He said that took 73 takes.
Well, yeah. I mean, the animatronics to do that, to move that puppet, to get it right.
It had as many as 60 people operating it.
Absolutely. And by the way, I'll do this because I think it needs to be. I have a list of the principal plant operators.
Oh, yes. We'll talk about that. But he said, going back to the dentist scene, he said that they didn't have a scripted ending for their scene. So he just said, "Hey, Steve, Bill, just come up with something." So they did, I think he said 30 or 32 takes, and they were doing something different every time, which is just when Seymour is just sitting there and he's waiting his turn.
Yeah.
And he's hiding the gun, and Oren is just kicking the patient out, and they did something different every single time. And the one that they went with was he kicks him out, and then he clutches, because he tries to steal one of his ghastly dentistry tools.
It was the one he was using on his tongue.
Yeah, and he tried to steal it. He takes it. I was like, "What are you doing trying to steal it?" He kicks him out. He says, "Sicko." It just walks away, and I'm like,
pot kettle.
yeah, it's so good. It's so good. Then he just looks at Seymour and is like, because he's so frustrated that he didn't.
Does it scare the hell out of you if I came at you with this?
Yeah, it's like, come here, boy. So because he's so frustrated that he couldn't make that guy suffer, so then he's like, I'm going to do it to you, and then that leads to him. And I mean, this is something we can get into if you want to. And then it leads to the scene, because that's the interesting thing about this is that, and I did some research on this because, we're already talking about, the Greek chorus being this classical literary thing finding its way in here. Another classical literary motif that we're seeing in here is the Faustian bargain, which even Frank Oz said, this movie is a Faustian bargain.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's right out of the mouth of the director. So it's not just me. I thought it when we were watching it today. But then when Frank Oz just came out and said it, like, oh, see, I'm not crazy. Now, shut up, Jimmy. What ends up happening, the Faustian bargain, is Audrey 2 is promising to give meek little Seymour the girl of his dreams and wealth and success and all of those things if he just feeds him. But what does Audrey 2 like? Audrey 2 likes, well, at first it was just blood. And you had the little song, it's like, you're never happy unless I open a vein. And, and it sucks his finger, and it basically gives him, what is it, anemia? It gives him anemia basically.
Yeah. And in the stage play, it's much more evident that he gets paler and paler as the play gets bigger and bigger.
Yeah. Yeah,
and he gets weaker. He's just kind of spacing out in the corner somewhere when everybody else is talking.
But then it turns into, it's like, feed me, Seymour, feed me all night long. And so he has.
Dewey, you opened your trap. You talked.
Yeah, and now he has to feed him people. But he's like, I don't want to do that. And then he's like, well, come on, surely you know someone who deserves to die. And then they have the little song where he sees Oren, who's dating original Audrey,
and
Audrey
beating her regularly.
Yeah, and he decides, now you know what, I'll get you the dentist.
Nothing screams family friendly than spousal abuse. Even though they're not married, but you get the idea.
Yeah. So he's going in there, he's intent on killing him, but then the funny thing, and I actually really enjoy the nuance here, because if they had gone all the way with it, where say he killed Oren, like even if he did it kind of reluctantly and by accident, he actually shot him, that would paint Seymour in a very negative light. But instead, Oren does it to himself, because he puts out this, he's so frustrated that he decides to go farther than he normally does, and he puts on this weirdo contraption because he gets high. This is the running gag with him. He gets high on laughing gas.
Nitrous
oxide. He snorts it. Like, he has a little thing and he snorts it.
Yep, he says, I'm going to need some gas for this.
Yeah.
Well, I don't really, I don't need gas. No, not for you. It's for me.
It's for me. Yeah. And then
I find a little nitro heightens the pleasure.
Yeah. And then he overdoses himself and breaks the mask so he can't take it off and does himself in.
Indeed.
So technically, Seymour didn't kill him. Now, he mutilated the body to feed to Audrey too, but that's the extent of what he did there. So it makes it kind of
go to the second one. Let me handle the second one, because that's
with
that
Mushnick.
Mushnick sees him cutting up Oren's body back on the back dock.
Yes.
He panics, goes away, comes back when he realizes that Seymour is now with Audrey, the original Audrey.
Yeah, Audrey
and
won.
So he decides to blackmail Seymour, says, you're going to go away, you're going to leave me the plant, but you got to tell me how to feed it. Tell me your secret gardening tips. And obviously, Tui is very hungry by this point because he's very large. And Seymour is, doesn't want to do this, knows it's bad, doesn't want to kill Mr. Mushnick. Mushnick is holding a gun on him, so it's not like he can. And he's saying, well, you need to water him on the Thursdays. You need to give him minerals all the time, slowly backing Mr. Mushnick up to the open trap of Tui. And Tui then takes it from there once Mushnick turns around and says, what in God's name? Bam! Closes, chews him a couple bit, and swallows him.
Yep.
Interesting little bit here, though. And I don't know, I can't remember from my mind if this is also part of the play, but specifically in this movie, Vincent Gardenia, who plays Mr. Mushnik, does not scream in pain, not once. He's being chomped. He is being hurt. And all he is saying is, wait, no, wait. If you need to go back and watch it because he is not in pain at all as he's being swallowed and chewed by this massive alien plant. I thought that was one of the funniest bits.
I didn't notice that. Weirdly
it's very hilarious because I'm sorry, if I'm in the maw of some kind of critter that's intent on eating me and using me for sustenance, I would be screaming a little bit more than wait, no.
Yeah. But that brings up another interesting question. Did Seymour kill him too? I thought about that watching it. I would argue no, it was Tui. All he did was just kind of position him, right? So
he was facilitator.
If Seymour was going to get arrested, he might get arrested as an accessory, but he didn't do the actual murder.
No, that's the thing is Seymour blames himself for all of these because he is essentially a good person and a very meek person. So he is going to assume the worst about himself. Mm-hmm. But no, he never actually commits an act other than desecration of a body.
Yeah.
And that's really all he's done. Because he was perfectly content to feed his own blood to this monster plant.
Yeah. Which is interesting because, and I think this is only in the director's cut because there's two versions of this movie and we'll talk about both of them.
Yeah.
And I think it's in the director's cut. He says to Audrey 1 is like, I've done awful things, but never to you.
Yeah. I mean, again, his personality is so beaten down by the way he's been treated by Mr. Mushnik all these years as an orphan that he can't help but think that everything he does is terrible.
Yeah. Which is
and
interesting.
The one bright spot in his life is Audrey.
Mm-hmm. Which is interesting because the entire play does not make it into the movie. They cut some things out, including they cut out some of the songs, including one that was, I think, was focusing on Mr. Mushnik. And you find out that Mr. Mushnik in the movie, he seems decent enough until the end where he's trying to blackmail Seymour.
He's not a nice guy.
Yeah, no. But in the stage play, he's much less of a nice guy.
He adopted, quote unquote, Seymour specifically to be little more than a slave. He does pay him a pittance and gives him every other Sunday off. So, Seymour thinks he's a good man. But the song that was left out is Mushnik and Son, which is after they start becoming successful with Tui in the window there. Mushnik is extrapolating about how far they're going to go or how far Mushnik is going to go. And Seymour will be there and he will supposedly change the name to Mushnik and Sons. They will be famous, rich, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. But it's always couched in, this is going to happen to me and you'll be there.
Yeah.
So it's not, it would have looked bad. And I don't think as a movie-going audience that they already, you were kind of liking Mushnik for the weird, kind of greedy guy that he wasn't inherently bad. And what he was actually doing at the end, that's when he starts getting even more greedy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But
and by the way, just for anyone who wants to know, that was one of 4 songs from the stage play that were cut out of the movie. The other ones were Closed for Renovation.
Yeah.
Now it's Just the Gas and Call Back in the Morning. And if you watch the theatrical version, they cut out a 5th song, which was Don't Feed the Plants.
Yeah.
Or finale, Don't Feed the Plants. Now, the director's cut puts it back.
Yes, where it belongs.
But interestingly, it cut several songs out and then made a new song that is my favorite song in the musical. And because I remember I was listening to the stage show soundtrack and I'm like, where's Mean Green Mother? Where's Mean Green Mother? And then I'm like, wait, they made it for the movie?
Yeah.
Why is my favorite song in the movie and not the stage show?
Howard Ashman came back and said, in fact, there is a quote, Frank Oz, Howard Ashman, he says, Howard Ashman, the author of Little Shop, the playwright and the lyricist, gave me the best advice of anybody ever regarding directing this kind of movie. He said, Frank, this is supposed to be stupid. And it was the best advice. He said, my tongue was firmly in my cheek when I wrote this. So giving him that advice, because obviously Frank Oz went back to Howard Ashman for blessing and advice. And one of the things he said is, I need the plant needs to have another song, and a big showy song. And Ashman said, I got the perfect thing for you. He should be the worst of the worst, and he should be the only one who cusses in the movie. And I'm going to make sure the song says that. And the song has a couple of versions too. There's the version that's in the movie, and then there's the version that's on the soundtrack.
Yeah. And that, which I'm guessing is the one that was performed because, so everyone knows, there's a reason why this is one of the best. This is possibly the best song in the movie, is because it was nominated for an Oscar. And I'll tell you what else it was nominated for and what it lost to, because it didn't win. But I think that's the one, I'm guessing that's the one they performed at the Oscars with the Levi Strauss and the Four Tops.
Yeah.
Because Levi Strauss is the voice of
Levi
Audrey.
Stubbs.
Audrey 2.
It's Levi Stubbs.
Stubbs. Oh, sorry. I wrote it.
Levi Strauss makes pants.
Yeah, that's right.
Not pants, yeah. Not plants.
Yes. You have impressed Jimmy. Nice job.
I do my best.
Yeah. So anyway. So you were saying song Mean Green Mother from Outer Space.
From Outer Space. Anyway, yeah, so Howard Ashman, wrote this thing up, and obviously everybody loved it. And that's, again, the multiple lyrics, the ones you get in the movie are different than the one on the soundtrack.
Yep. There are kaiju references in it.
Yeah, King Kong.
How did that? I'm trying to remember how that lyric went. Is like,
let me see. I don't come from no black.
Talk to me about old King Kong. You think he's the worst? Well, you're thinking wrong.
Don't talk to me about Frankenstein. He got a temper? Ha! He ain't got mine.
Yeah.
And it's heavy electric guitar throughout, which is you don't hear.
Yeah, it's got a really intense beat.
It's very much the rock and roll, the dirty rock and roll.
Yeah, because that was the thing. That was something that Frank Oz said he wanted to maintain, because he's like, this is the off Broadway. Because when you're off Broadway, or even just off Broadway, he said there's an edge to it, and he wanted to keep the edge. That's why he intentionally made sure not to film it like a traditional Hollywood musical with some big grand shot that, with a bunch of people in it. Now, there's one shot toward the end of early on that's kind of like that, but he still tried to pull it in a little bit so that it didn't quite go as grandiose, because that's not the style of musical that you have here. He wanted to keep that edge.
Yeah, well, he was the master of close-ups too. I mean, and that was essential for learning to love these characters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which we'll get into that as well when we talk about the ending. But, Mean Green Mother from Outer Space was nominated for Best Original Song in 1987.
Mm-hmm.
The other nominees were Glory of Love from Karate Kid Part 2,
Oy.
Life in a Looking Glass from That's Life, and Somewhere Out There from An American Tale. You want to talk about a song and a movie that'll break your heart. Good Lord.
I wonder which one won.
None of those are the winners. They all lost to something else.
Should we get the drum roll, please?
Oh, good. I don't have to play it off of the soundboard. There you go. Although you might want to clean off your microphone a little bit there.
Yeah, excuse me.
There you go. It won't surprise you, because there were a lot of big popular movies in 1986.
It's a banner year.
Yes. Are you ready for this?
Just come on. I'm just sitting here waiting.
Take My Breath Away from Top Gun.
Oh, God, that movie. It will not leave me alone.
So that's what Mean Green Mother lost to.
And I guess it's deserved, since it had, the box office spoke, obviously, and that obviously affected the voters for the Academy. I think they were wrong.
You would have given it to Mean Green Mother? I
would have given it to Mean Green, or the one from the Five-O movie.
Somewhere Out There.
Somewhere Out There, just because the Top Gun movie, the Top Gun song just didn't touch me personally the way that Mean Green Mother or Somewhere Out There did. Somewhere Out There, it's just grabbing your heartstrings and yanking.
Yes.
And yes. I guess it means it lasts longer, because you walk out of the theater with that feeling. And Mean Green Mother, you go out toe tapping. It's like, okay, what was that lyric again? Mm-hmm. I need to get the soundtrack. I need to get that, because that was a banger.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, I mean, Top Gun. I mean, we all knew what it was as a movie. It was what it was. And the song's like, okay, yeah, okay, it's a song. And it got overplayed on the radio.
Of course it did.
But I have a lot of disputes with things that the Academy votes on.
We all do. The movie was also nominated for Best Special Effects. And somehow...
I am in shock. I did not know that. That is brand new information.
Nominated for Best Special Effects. And it did not win.
And that blows me away, too. It just
I couldn't believe that. I was like, what did... I'm like, it was nominated, but who else was nominated?
1986. Good Lord. There was so much coming out in 1986.
Yes, there was.
That's the problem there was a glut of good things.
Yeah. The other nominee that did not win was Poltergeist 2.
Jeez. Well, okay.
But when I tell you who actually won, you're going to be like, yeah, I get it. Probably. They both lost to Aliens.
Yeah. I'm okay with that because it's one of my favorite movies and one of my favorite sequels. So I can't really complain too much about that. But come on, the puppet artistry alone.
Yeah. Well, you know what? That is a great way to transition to talking about this puppet, or rather, all 6 or 7 of them. Some sources I looked at said 6, some said 7.
Oh boy, is this going to be a discussion or not? This is going to be an info dump, folks.
Sorry. All right, here we go. Because I know you got lots of notes about the puppet, and I did take some notes about the puppet myself. But I'm like, I know Damon's going to be bringing the info on the puppet. You got to give it to me, man. You got to give it to me. I'm the puppet master. This is my shtick now on this show. All right, let's get started with your basics. Lyle Conway. Yes.
Was the primary Muppet designer.
And Richard Conway. No relation.
No relation. And the animatronic specialist from Henson's Creature Shop. He alone conceived of Audrey 2's appearance. Well, I can't say alone. He did have some help from Brian Henson. And that was to keep it threatening but approachable. Mm-hmm. I think is how it was made. The lips on it has been a controversy since I think the early 2000s. They started seeing it because it was voiced by Levi Stubbs, who is a black man. They felt that it was mocking or being a stereotype of
a caricature.
Yes, a very caricature. And in addition to that, that brings in a whole other idea that it's in the slums. People who sound like this, who like this kind of music, are dangerous, and inherently they'll get you to do horrible things. It's a whole thing that Frank Oz is frankly like, what? No, that's not the intention. The idea that they had, that Conway and Brian Henson had, was that the lips were Audrey 2's way of looking more like Seymour. Mm-hmm. And that's what they based it on. They looked at Rick Moranis' lips and they used that as their base to fashion the lips around the pod.
It was to make him look anthropomorphic.
Much more anthropomorphic,
which made him look, I guess, more trustworthy. Which goes back to the whole Faustian bargain thing, because
indeed,
if it looks inhuman, humans naturally repulse against that.
Yes,
but if you start making it anthropomorphic, okay, we'll trust it a little bit
more.
And
it starts with the Maxwell House can bud, where it is very pale and little pale pink and little pale green and very sweet looking, and there's no thorns, there's no vines.
That's the marketable version that you can go buy at the store.
Exactly.
It's a Funko Pop before Funko Pops, and there is an Audrey 2 Funko Pop, and I kind of want it. Indeed.
But there were, again, like you said, there's some discrepancy about how many of the puppets were actually made. The source I said had said 6, but again, that number, because they're going to get damaged, they're going to get replaced, whatever.
Yeah.
But they required nightly touch-ups from the paint department.
Yes. Because
the colors would wash out under the harsh studio lighting. And again, when they started using dust and moisture and everything, they just, the poor puppet crew and Henson Studios had to come in every night after filming and just spend hours, especially with the giant Tui at the end. The amount of time that they had to spend repainting this thing everywhere.
Yeah.
Oh, not just the outside, the inside, because the inside was covered in KY jelly.
Oh,
so they had to scrape the jelly off, dry it, and then reapply the paint to make sure that the orchid-looking formations inside were as vibrant as they were on the initial appearance.
Yes. I mean, I actually found in one of the documentaries on the Blu-ray, Mr. Conway, well, no, it wasn't him specifically, but they gave the actual numbers for the amount of stuff that went into all of these puppets.
Oh, God, yes.
It was
amazing.
15,000 handmade leaves, 2,000 feet of vine. That is almost half a mile.
It's
and then,
incredible.
But speaking of miles, 11.5 miles of cable.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You got to, if you want those vines to work, if you want those lips to move, if you want that pod to open, you need cable and actuators. And they had so many.
Yeah. And the crazy thought is, and I think Frank Oz miscounted a little bit, but there are almost no optical effects in this movie. There's maybe 2 or 3 in the entire movie.
Yep.
All the rest of the special effects are done in camera. That was crazy to think about.
And that is what Frank Oz wanted. He said, there's no CGI in any of this. CGI was in its infancy back then. He said that would have looked terrible.
Yeah.
He said everything is practical. Everything is on camera. Everything is happening as it's happening.
Yeah. I think I think he pointed out there's only like the only optical effects there is there's the lightning bolt at the Chinese florist,
right?
Which is when Audrey 2 arrives. There's one, I think he said the subway in one of the early shots, I think was added in.
The L train.
Because
it's an elevated train.
Yeah. And I think there's one in the director's cut in the extended ending. And then I found out because the extended ending had never been finished. This is the crazy thought. It had to be restored in 2012. And in order to finish it, they touched it up a little bit digitally just to kind of polish it up and get it presentable.
They had to get rid of some of the because some of the cables and wires were visible in the original.
Yeah, because it was still pretty rough. They never finished.
It was really rough. I remember watching when the first DVD came out and they had deleted scenes and the original ending. I went, what? Awesome. And it's like, and it had Frank Oz talking over it and then talking about how, and it was very basic. It wasn't as extended as in the director's cut that we have now. To actually manipulate Audrey on set every day that they were filming. From the smallest one, like the one he takes to the radio station, took 4 people to do a lap-sized puppet.
A lap-sized puppet where all it really does is look at Seymour and then look at a woman's butt and attempt to bite it.
Yeah. And talk about salacious. And that was just, Well, the fact that she was also wearing red, the color of blood. I mean, the whole thing. And then Seymour
just grabs her, like, what are you doing? And the puppet, there's so much little nuances to the puppet with how it reacts. Because when Seymour freaks out and grabs him before he can do that, the puppet actually reacts. Like, there's a little reaction, like, what?
Well, not just reacts, but its leaves are flapping around like, what the come on, just let me get a taste, okay? And the reaction that when I first saw it and every subsequent action, the first thing I'm thinking of, it's a dog.
Yes.
It's a dog that's off its leash and he is trying to keep it from biting people. And that does not go away. It
goes throughout the whole thing. So then there's the lap. So there's the tiny one. And then there's also the one that's, I don't know if that's the lap size one, but when it grows the first time, which by the way, that was all just forced perspective.
Yep.
So that was not an optical effect. And Frank Oz explained how he did it. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, that is genius. And basically, it was forced perspective. He zoomed the camera in, but the actual puppet, the larger puppet, it was the same one that they were using, but they used forced perspective. And they just put it behind the can and then zoomed in. It was actually behind the can, and that made it look larger.
And then, of course, they had the can bulging out. They had plungers to kind of move whatever was inside to make it look like it was expanding within the Maxwell House can.
Yes. Yeah. And then we had the kind of like when it first started to get large, and that's when it started to get popular and people were started coming to the shop.
That would be the man-sized version.
Yeah. They had 2 different ones that they used for that.
Yes.
And then there was the final one where it's a little bit bigger than a human, and then that's when it starts talking and makes the Faustian deal with Seymour. And
well, what's interesting is that they had what's called a stunt puppet for the larger one, and they had the actual speaking puppet. The stunt puppet was used for when it would, fall over and hit the floor.
Yeah.
That was a completely unactuated, not wired.
Yeah.
Because obviously they don't want to hurt their main, I guess, star of the play. Of the movie.
I mean, you could talk about it like that because even Rick Moranis kind of joked that he got to a point where he just started talking to the puppet like it was just an ugly guy who was his co-star.
But see, and that is not unique to Rick Moranis. When Jim Henson would go on the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson and he would bring Kermit or Rolf or whatever with him, Johnny would immediately start talking to Jim. But when the puppet started talking, he found, unbeknownst to him and not in control of himself, he would begin talking to Kermit as if it was a real person. And he would comment on that on the air, says, I don't know why I'm talking to you. You're a sock. And Jim would say, that's the beauty of this. When a puppeteer inhabits their creation, and then Kermit says, I'll take it from here. Then he would start talking, and Johnny would, of course, switch over and says, look, I did it again. And that's the beauty of the Henson Creature Shop, is being able to make anything, a pot, a pan, a car, an otter, anything, believable as a thinking, breathing, living thing.
Mm-hmm.
And a plant is already technically a living thing, so making Tui come to life,
personifying it,
was not hard at all. The only caveat is they could not move the pod fast enough for the songs.
Yep. Which was a problem that they faced early on, and then Frank Oz stumbled on a solution. He told that story a couple of times on the Blu-ray. He said they stumbled on it because he said he was looking at some test footage on a VHS, and he was showing it to somebody else who was working on it. This was really early in production. And he would fast forward and rewind it, and he's like, hold on a second. And then he would speed it up a little bit. He's like, that looks right. So then he figured out, this is how we do it. We film the puppet when it's talking, it's singing. We film it at 16 frames a second instead of 24. And then they would speed it up a little bit to 24, and it looked correct. The lip sync was fine. The problem
was Rick Moranis.
Well, not just Moranis. Any of the actors, if they were interacting with the plant, they had to talk slower.
And not just talk, sing.
And move and sing slower.
And this was the first time I knew what was coming. I watched Rick Moranis. I watched his mouth. I watched his movements, and I can finally see that it's sped up.
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't before. The illusion was flawless when I first saw it. It was flawless on every repeat viewing until now, until knowing that they had to do that because of the complexity of this damn thing. Oh, love this. Frank Oz, genius.
He really is. He really is. In fact, he even said in his commentary, like, this is one of my favorite movies that I've ever made.
And I appreciate that so much, and I'm sure it was hell to make.
Oh, it was incredibly challenging. He said it was incredibly challenging. Like, they were on the, what was it, the 007, because they filmed it in England. It was on the 007 set.
Yeah, the Albert Broccoli 007 stage.
Yeah, and it was cold.
Yeah,
it was just cold. I'm like, what the heck? Why are they not heating this thing? But it was incredibly cold. It was hard. It was really hard, but they plugged along, and they got through it. Apparently, they played a lot of ping pong. Ping pong was popular.
Well, there's a lot of downtime when you got to make sure that the puppet's not falling apart.
Yeah, but I guess they
warm up the actuators.
Yeah, so they would play ping pong. So that was like a joke. They would play jokes on each other involving ping pong.
Well, another one of the wonderful things about this is they built Skid Row. They built an entire section of city inside
and
the
they
studio.
Actually would go to thrift stores to get the props to make it look authentic and bring them from the United States.
Phenomenal. The fact that they found a baby blue Marcolite phone for Audrey to use in her apartment, and she only uses it once, and yet it's there the whole time. Whenever they show her apartment, it's like, oh my God, where did you find baby blue? Holy crap, I had mustard yellow in my house. I mean, I don't know where. I don't know where they found it. Honestly, it's...
Yeah, the production
phenomenal.
Design in this film is uncanny. And that's actually the thing that's nice about this. That is one of the advantages of making this into a film, because, what was it, Menken and Ashman. They wanted to make this into a when they made the stage play, they wanted to make this into a movie, and they personally asked Frank Oz to do it. He tried to say no at first because he didn't know if he could do it, because that's going to be a lot of work, and then they were able to get him to do it. And one of the things that's interesting, especially if you've seen the stage play, because I have seen it, I've only seen it once, but I've seen it, is the stage play is very focused on the shop. They don't get out of the shop very often.
No, everything happens either in the shop or in front of the shop, which is considered downtown.
Yeah, but Oz wanted to make this cinematic, so he had the characters leave the shop and go to other places. You see him use editing techniques or crazy camera angles to do things that you normally can't do in a stage play that really does accentuate what you're seeing. He takes advantage of the medium.
It brings you into the world that they're talking about and they sing about in the opening sequence. You know that this is Skid Row. You can see the street is cobbled. It's not just asphalt that's falling apart. These are like the underpining is cobblestone, and there are potholes filled with disgusting water, and there's a bum constantly sleeping outside the shop.
Yeah, it really you are in this world. You are in this world.
And it's such a jar then when we go to Oren Scrivello's scene and his song about being a dentist.
You'll be a dentist.
We are now actually downtown rather than Skid Row, and everything is clean. Everything is nice. There's storefronts, and it obviously looks like a stage still because the cars really aren't moving, but they're vintage cars, and the sidewalk is spotless. And he bursts through the door to go into his offices, and everything looks completely different than what we're used to be
white
seeing.
And it's clean, which is funny because they originally made it grungier and actually were supposed to make it look like it had blood splattered on it. But it made the test audiences a little too squeamish. So they cut back on that. I'm actually kind of glad that they did because I like the pristine white sterile environment.
And I think it fits with Oren's personality. As much of a sadist as he is, he's still a professional.
Yes.
He still needs things to look a certain way before he tortures you.
Yes.
And then has his receptionist nurse clean up after him.
Yeah, and I think it works because it offers a very nice contrast, like you were talking about, compared to Skid Row, because that's the whole point. And Oz was trying to visually communicate. That's why he didn't want big grand vista shots, because he wanted the audience to feel just as trapped in Skid Row as the characters, because that's a big motivator for our characters. Is they want to get out of this slum. They want to do better for themselves. That's a big thing. Seymour wants to be successful. Audrey 1 wants to get away from Oren and be with a nice guy, a good man, so she can have the American dream. I said before that The Blob was one of the most Americana movies you could probably see. This is a very Americana as well, but it's a little bit tongue-in-cheek Americana, but I don't think in a mean-spirited sort of way.
In her song, Somewhere That's Green, she is pining for the perfect life as she knows it in 1960.
Yes.
And we laugh at it because it is so basic. They would be lower middle class, if that, if she got everything she wanted. But to her, coming from where she is, it is the best she can think of. It is the pinnacle of what it means to be an American citizen that is successful. And in that sense, it's a very heartbreaking song.
Yeah.
You
okay there, man?
No, I'm just a little choked up. It's a very beautiful song, and Ellen Greene sells it with such pathos and emotion that it does choke me up.
That's the thing I love about this, especially the film version, is even though the guys who made this, Ashman and Menken, said that they were doing this tongue-in-cheek.
Oh, absolutely.
But there's still a sincerity there. Yeah, it's tongue-in-cheek, but the characters and these actors, they sell it. It would have been easy to devolve into camp with this.
Oh, absolutely.
But it doesn't go there. It walks right up to that line, and it doesn't cross it.
Well, see, here's the thing. An author can write with whatever intention he wants. Once an actor gets a hold of that material, they have no control over how they're going to sell it. And Ellen Greene knew that this was her song. Barring the Suddenly Seymour duet she has with Rick Moranis, this was a showcase for her And she put as much honest emotion as she could into this song. And she sold it. She sold it on off Broadway. She sold it on Broadway. She sold it in the movie.
Oh yeah. Okay. So the stage play got so popular they were allowed to be on Broadway.
Yeah, they got a revival onto Broadway, and she came back for that.
Yeah,
because
and then they had her for the movie. Yeah, and yeah, she sells it so much. In fact, she actually, I think it was her. I think it was Ellen Green. It was Ellen Green or Ashman, I think, said that the thing about Audrey is that she's very mousy and talks like this, but when she sings, she's vulnerable. She gets to be herself, which I found interesting because when I watched the movie, when we get to Suddenly Seymour, her voice is not mousy anymore. A lot of times when she's singing, she still sounds like mousy little.
Well, definitely
little
in Somewhere That's Green.
Yeah. But then when she's doing Suddenly Seymour, suddenly I think we're actually hearing Ellen Green's real voice because she doesn't sound like that.
No, she does not.
She puts that on, but Suddenly Seymour. Well, because she's duetting with the man she actually loves. Subtly she's confident. She's stronger. She's herself. And I'm like, so that's why her voice sounds. She doesn't sound like mousy Audrey anymore. She sounds strong and powerful at that point. And she could bellow out all of these lines with Rick Moranis.
Let's segue to talking about that particular scene because I find that scene incredibly fascinating, and I found something new that never occurred to me before. So it is a duet. He starts it. He has just told her that she has found out that Oren has gone missing and that they suspect foul play, and he sheepishly asks, "Well, would that be so bad?" And she, of course, says no, and she goes away crying, and he thinks he's upset her, and she says, "No, I think it would be the best thing ever." And
because she felt trapped because he basically told her, if you break up with me, I hurt you.
Exactly. And so, she was living under threat. And again, weird thing to make a musical comedy about, but it fits with the horror aspect of the play. Now, this is supposed to be kind of they're both coming out to each other. They're both expressing how they feel about each other in song form, which is a very musical theater trope.
Yeah, it is. Although what's interesting, as Frank Oz said, because the stage play is like this, there's no transition to the music. It's just bam, into it.
It just goes right in.
Yeah.
And I think
that's part of that off Broadway edge.
Yes. In normal, where the trope normally takes place, apart from the music leading into what's going on, they don't do that. The way they film Seymour, Rick Moranis, is there's a lot of close-ups and a lot of he's saying, well, look, I'm standing right before you. Here I am. I love you. But he looks worried the entire time. His face is not confident, yet his words are belying that. He's saying, suddenly Seymour is standing beside you. You don't need no makeup. You're great just the way you are. And yet he's waiting for her to say, no, you're a creep. You're a nerd. Go away. And it never happens. But they're filming him from a down angle, up. So he's supposed to look big and heroic, and he just comes across even more nebbishy in that first one. When she then has her big explosion, suddenly Seymour, and she's talking about how horrible her life has been. No one's, her mom was poor, her dad left her, nothing's ever been right. She meets a guy, first guy, she just says whatever.
While working at a club. She didn't go into detail, but it sounded. What was it? What was it? The Gutter? I think it was.
The Gutter.
The Gutter.
The Gutter.
And she said, "I had to wear such." How did she put it? She described the clothes.
I had to wear cheap and tawdry clothes, not the nice things that I'm wearing right now.
Not the nice things I'm wearing now. Which I'm just like, they just leave it at that. I'm like,
yeah, it's pretty funny. It's a funny little bit, and that is directly from the play too. It's really good. But when she turns around. And now they're in a ruin of a tenement building.
Yes.
And there's this big partial wall of brick standing there. And you're seeing her in the foreground. And behind her is this partial wall. And she spins around to sing, suddenly Seymour. And he steps out from behind the wall at that exact moment. And he's supposed to be he's here, my knight in shining armor. And he's tentative. His shoulders are hunched. He's like, what?
Yeah.
Me? And it's both tragic and funny at the same time, is that this is the big boom, boom, boom. These guys are in love movement, and you're not feeling it. It's two very damaged individuals.
Yes.
Finding love amid a ruinous tenement building.
Yes.
And here's the bit I found. In every single crack and crevice around this thing, there is a wildflower growing. There is new life. There is spring happening. So the subtext or the context of where they are is they are in the worst place ever. They are in Skid Row. They are in a dilapidated, shattered, ruinous tenement building, the place that they don't want to be. And yet they're singing about their newfound love of each other. And there is this burgeoning new life coming out of the ruins all around them. And I found that strangely beautiful and like subtle for a play that or a movie that has been
as unsubtle as it can be.
Exactly. It's going to bludgeon you over the head with everything else. But this,
again, that off Broadway edge.
And I know it had to be Oz. It had to be him looking at that saying, we did so much on the Muppet Show where if you don't look at the background, you're missing half the show. You're missing the little bits and pieces that we are putting in for viewers to find. And I think he did that. I think he recognized, even though they're singing this song and they're not really showing us visually that they are the trope, what if we add this little bit of new life and possibility, this springtime in the gutter?
Yeah.
And it's oddly moving.
It is. That's, like I said, it's tongue-in-cheek, but only just enough. It does not hinder the pathos, and I love that. I understand now, and we'll talk about it in a bit with the ending. I understand now why the test audiences were mad at that original ending. I really do, and I've got thoughts on that. But there's a couple of other main points that I do want to hit at. As usual, I over-prepare for the show.
I have so many notes. I have so many, and most of them I took even before I started watching it. So please have at it.
Oh, Jimmy would like your notes for his blog.
I'm sure he would. A lot of what I have doesn't have really anything to do with the movie itself. It's more of like the back stuff. I have stuff about Roger Corman and the people that worked for him. And I have stuff about others. Anyway.
But anyway, I do want to talk about, I hinted at it. There are a lot of celebrity cameos in this. We've talked about Steve Martin. There's so many talented people. We talked about Steve Martin, Christopher Guest.
Yep.
I'm trying to think of some of the
John Candy.
Oh, John Candy. Okay. John Candy. I watched that, and Jimmy was even kind of nudging me. He was like, was this where your on-air persona came from? Because
probably.
It's like, no, I was channeling more the Robin Williams from Good Morning Vietnam, but I could see it in this.
It's
John Candy is this radio host, and I don't think that character is in either of the previous versions, if I remember correctly. I think he was invented for the movie.
He's not in the 1960s version, but Weird Wilkinson is in the stage play.
Okay,
he's just not as extreme. John Candy had a field day with this.
Yeah, again, all ad-libbed.
Gave him a little bit of free reign. And that's the beauty of that is they've got when Rick Moranis or when Seymour comes in holding Tui, and John Candy's like, "Wait, what are you doing here? Ma'am, put your clothes back on." What's your husband going to say? "I'm right here, Wink." It's like Rick Moranis looks confused because he had no idea that was going to happen.
Yeah. And then what's funny is depending on which version you watch, there's different celebrity cameos because they had, was it Richard Dooley?
Paul Dooley.
Paul Dooley, excuse me.
Paul Dooley is the original Patrick Martin of licensing and marketing.
Yes. Who meets, because we'll talk more in depth about the ending, but he appears subtly at the top of a building when Seymour's going to jump off of it and says, "I'm going to market this thing."
Yep.
But and that's in that version. But then he wasn't available to do the reshoots for the new ending, so they got James Belushi.
Jim Belushi.
Belushi.
Poor man's John Belushi.
Yeah, to play the basically the same character. What's really funny is he kind of breaks the fourth wall.
Yeah, he does.
Because there's a reprise of Subtly Seymour, between Audrey 1 and Seymour.
Oh, God,
and then
I
he
love
just
that.
comes in and says, hey.
Stop that singing.
Yeah, stop that singing. Yeah.
And of course that's not in the play at all in any version. But again, Jim Belushi made it his own, and that's the version I knew for the longest time, the only version I knew. And it was like, hey there, ho there, what you doing? It's just stop. I got a deal for you. And it's like, okay, the patter, I like it. He's very much sounds like a salesman, and it sold me. And then of course seeing the director's cut, it's like, okay, I see how different that is. A little darker, a little more menacing. Because Paul Dooley had a completely different take.
Yeah, he tells him to
neither
stop
here nor
singing for a moment. Yeah, I was trying to make
he
sure
does.
I got the exact line. So it's just so funny that they're all of these people, like everybody. Oh, Bill Murray, everybody wanted to be in this movie. It's so
Christopher
nuts.
Guest. You had him, right?
Just,
Christopher Guest. Okay, here's a cameo that doesn't get brought up because most people didn't know her. Beatrice Redding is the old, somewhat transient woman who does the opening of Skid Row. Alarm goes off at 7. She's the one who starts off that sequence. And she was born in 1933. She died in 1991 at the age of 57. She was American born, but she was based mostly in London for almost the entirety of her career. She was adept at a wide range of musical styles, from gospel to blues to musical comedy. She had a wicked sense of humor, and she was mentally quick. She earned a Tony nomination for William Faulkner's play Requiem for a Nun. I could find nothing more really about her because she died so young, but
it's tragic.
She was there in London when they were casting for the extras, and originally it was going to be Ronette to do that opening sequence vocals, and then they heard Beatrice sing, and they went, oh, hell no, she's doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And it adds so much to see this downtrodden woman who's probably a maid or a housekeeper up downtown to just be schlumping and singing this song about how terrible it is that she gets to see the glitz and glamour 8 hours, 10 hours a day, and then have to come back down here to Skid Row. And again, it's a moment of pathos right at the beginning of the movie, right at the beginning, where you're heartbroken for this poor woman.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, and then of course it immediately splits, and you have everybody in Skid Row singing about how crappy it is to live here. And they are wandering around like zombies.
Yes, I noticed that.
And it's very eerie. And then when Seymour takes over and does his verses, he goes down a blind alleyway, and there's a chain link fence up there, and the homeless residents of Skid Row are singing back up to his lyrics, and they are crawling slowly up the fence, terrifying him, and he leaves the alley. But it's very, again, horror movie. These are zombies. These are infected, whatever and they are coming for him, and he doesn't want and the song is about wanting to get out, and he has to leave. Oh, love this movie.
Yes, I could tell. I could tell.
Much.
Yeah. So there are two more main things I want us to discuss, so I can make because they're the important bits. So I've already talked about it. I want to talk about Faustian bargains. Although I had to hold myself back just a little bit, because with episodes like this, it's not one of the tentpole episodes. This could have easily become a Toku topic.
No kidding.
But I reeled myself in a little bit. So you might also be familiar with the Faustian bargain or the Faustian deal. It's also called a deal with the devil.
Indeed.
And this is actually, as I said, this is a very old literary motif. In fact, one of the sources I looked at said it goes as far back as the 6th century.
Yeah, absolutely.
With the figure named Theophilus. This is part of Christian lore.
Of course.
And is the friend of God, or beloved of God. He was a unhappy and despairing cleric, was disappointed with his life as a bishop, so he sold his soul to the devil and then gets redeemed by the Virgin Mary.
See that redemption part? It needs an ironic end in there.
Yeah. Well, there's parallels to that.
That's what happens during the Middle Ages when they start doing the passion plays.
Yes.
Anybody who makes a deal with the devil gets thrown into the hellmouth, which is what everybody came to see anyway. Because I'm sorry. You want to see the bad guy, the guy who throws away his eternal soul. You want to see him get his comeuppance. And oops.
Yeah. Well, like I said, we'll get into that. Now, the term, Faustian bargain, there's actually a historical figure related to that. So that story was inspired by a guy by the name of Johann, I hope I say this right, Johann Georg Faust, who lived from 1480 to 1540. He was an alchemist and apparently a necromancer.
Yeah. There you go.
So there was a chapbook that chronicled his infamous exploits, as my source put it, in the late 16th century, which inspired Christopher Marlowe's play, The Tragical History of the Life and Death of Dr. Faustus.
Yes.
Which was performed in London in 1592. And then around the same time, there was a legend of, again, hope I say this right, Pan Twardowski, who was a sorcerer who sold his soul to the devil. And that was becoming popular in Polish folklore.
Gotta love that time period.
Yeah.
It's so creative.
Now, the play, that original play was, what's the word? It was a didactic, as a lot of plays like this at the time were. It was written to warn Christians that God has set limits and humanity must respect those limits or face eternal damnation. However, in some versions of the Faust story, Faust outsmarts the devil, and in some of the other renditions of the story, the bargainer will try to use a technical point to outwit the devil. Doesn't always work, and if the pact is written, it's sealed in blood, which is another motif that you see come back in a lot of these stories. So, the most influential version of the story was written by Johann Wolfgang van Goethe.
Mm-hmm.
And
everybody knows that one.
Yep. And it dominated his intellectual life. It was a dramatic poem. First appeared in 1808. Second part was in 1831, which was the year he died.
Couldn't get away from it.
Yeah, basically.
You do one thing that people remember you for, and that's it.
Yep, basically. And to quote one of my sources, the legend seems to have particular resonance in times of moral crisis. End quote. So there's been a lot of 20th century spins on this concept. And interestingly and unsurprisingly, a lot of them have to do with the temptations of fascism and wealth.
What? That's, again, completely new information.
Ooh. Yeah. But interestingly, despite the theological underpinnings of this story, the Faust legend has thrived in the secular world, particularly in cultures filled with instant gratification. So it still resonates now. Credit cards, fast food, we get the immediate pleasure and then we have to pay for it later.
Oh, download speeds.
Yep.
Streaming. How often do you have Netflix say, "Are you still watching?" It's like, "Yes, shut up. Let me stream this. Let me binge."
Exactly.
It's all there for us. And that's the problem. It's too easy. Nobody has to work for it anymore.
Yep. The legend gained traction at a time when the closed medieval world was, cleaved open, as my source put it, by new mercantile culture. Karl Marx identified the quote-unquote influx of gold from the New World as the dawn of capitalism, and he compared capitalism to a sorcerer who is no, quote, longer able to control the powers of the underworld he has called up, end quote.
Interesting.
Yep. And here's the thing that's interesting. We talked about Goethe. That's probably the most famous version of this story.
It's the one most people know.
Yeah. Goethe actually added something to that story that was not in the previous renditions of the Faust story. Margareta. Or
That's
Gretchen.
Right. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
So Faust, there is an added complication.
Yes. Which I guess you could make the argument then Audrey is basically the same as Margareta or Gretchen, depending on which.
Well, she is also the inciting incident. She is the desire of Seymour. So everything he does is for her.
Yes. So Faust pursues her, he seduces her, and then unintentionally destroys her and her family as one of the consequences of his bargain. With the demon Mephistopheles. I should have mentioned that.
Right. He's not actually, quote, the devil.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's supposed to be a high ranking demon.
Of course.
Yeah.
Has to be. Who else has the power for that kind of oomph?
Yeah. In fact, Mephistopheles, when Faust complains to him, he even taunts him by saying, "Who was it who ruined her? I or you?"
Yes. Both of you.
Yep, basically. And
as
like
Dr.
I said,
Zoidberg would say.
Yeah.
Why not both?
Yeah, it's like the meme, right? You know,
Exactly.
Why not both? But now, like I said, we're coming to the end of our discussion. We need to talk about the two endings of this movie. A fun little bit that I have to throw this out there, just because I know my friend Raymond of the legal action team will appreciate it. In the original ending, Mr. Dooley tries to say, plants are public domain. I have to ask Raymond about that.
Well, I would say no at this point, just from what I know about, I watch enough Law and Order. I kind of got a handle on this. I think because Seymour claims to have created this hybrid plant, and in the 1960s movie, he did create it. It wasn't an alien. He then therefore has the rights to naming it and all subsequent cuttings of it. So no, this particular plant is not in the public domain. However, an apple tree.
Yes.
A wild apple tree, that would be in the public domain. So
it's
Dooley
like
is wrong.
It's like you stopped by the legal action team office and asked him this.
Well, I had to check to see if I had broken any laws, local laws, going over to the beta site. So
this is true.
I may have thumbed through a few legal briefs or books.
Yeah, well, better you than my pseudo sister hanging out over there. I'm just saying. Anyway, so the endings.
Yes.
So the funny thing is that the ending of the movie is the original ending is the ending of the play, but blown up to grandiose proportions.
Yes.
Because in the play, because we talked about, that's why I wanted to make sure we talked about the Faustian bargains.
Of course. Because
this is why they were used as cautionary tales. Because you sell your soul, you have fun for a while, and then you pay the price.
Yep.
So in the original stage play, Audrey 2 wins, and our main characters die. Audrey 2 eats them and takes over the world.
Of course!
Now, the movie, like I said, blew that up to grandiose proportions because it wasn't just simply Audrey 2 takes over the world. You get a whole sequence that is straight out of a Godzilla movie. In fact, they flat out said, we were mimicking Godzilla movies when we did this. It is full-fledged tokusatsu as far as I care, because Conway had worked on miniatures for Brazil, I think he mentioned, and for sure. I think it was another movie.
He understood how to make miniatures that looked like they were the real
and he did it like Super Raya. Like he was filming it at high speeds. They had like 3-foot miniature buildings. They had scale puppets of kaiju Audreys who were going around and eating trains and
multiple ones.
Yeah,
multiple.
and strangling the Statue of Liberty, which Frank Oz said was symbolic of, it's supposed to be Audrey is strangling America. And then the craziest thing is Audrey literally breaks the fourth wall because she bursts through the screen like it's like a movie screen, and then the camera zooms into his mouth, so it's like Audrey breaks through the screen and eats the audience. And before that, they had the end, but not just a question mark. It was question mark, exclamation point, question mark. So it's the blob thing again.
Which was obviously put in there for that very reason.
Yeah. So it's like the end. It's freaking out. It's incredibly depressing because that's just the big grandiose stuff at the end. The actual ending, when you're seeing Mean Green Mother, the context is completely different. Audrey dies because Audrey 2 tries to eat her. And if you listen to the commentary, because the commentary is primarily on the theatrical version, and Frank Oz says, I will snap my finger when we switch to the new ending.
Right.
Where it cuts is when she passes out in the original ending.
Audrey, are you okay? Yes. No. And then she collapses.
Yes. And then there's a reprise of Suddenly Seymour. No, not Suddenly Seymour. It's Somewhere That's Green. and it's completely recontextualized. So it's like she's talking about being somewhere that's green, and I'm like, so
inside the plant.
Yeah, inside the plant. You could even take it as being like the afterlife, because the Elysian Fields, which is a very Greek idea. It could be heaven, because it's paradise. I will lead me by still waters. I mean, there's even a verse that kind of touches on the Faustian bargain idea. What does it gain a man if he
loses his soul?
If he gains the whole and loses his soul. So that speaks to that. And so it's completely recontextualized. It breaks your heart. Good Lord, it breaks your heart.
It's terrible. It's brutal, but at the same time, it's exactly what
and then
Ashman wanted.
Yeah, and then Seymour takes her body and places it in the open maw of Audrey too. And Frank Oz said he intentionally designed it so that it looked ritualistic, like it was a sacrifice being offered in a religious ceremony.
If you notice that when the doors to the dock open for him, obviously the plant is opening for her, and as he's carrying her in, she's in a wedding dress, and it's very much like he's going across the threshold, carrying her. So this is both a wedding and a funeral. And that context hit me that when I watched it, and
because they've been robbed of a life together, and you'll notice it's not a violent undertaking.
No.
Like this consumption. The other characters was a little bit was in some form or another was violent. This one was weirdly gentle, and it hits you so hard. It's very slow and methodical.
Even Tui, even the puppet, even the way it's does not immediately slam shut and do the swallow. It's a very slow, and it brings her up so that she slides delicately and as if beneath water.
Yeah.
And it's strange how this monster, this kaiju, who has been manipulating Seymour the whole time, understands that Seymour needs this soft closure.
It's literally and figuratively. Yeah.
It's almost out of character for Tui, but by that same token, he's still manipulating.
Yeah, because I will tell you, sometimes I wondered, as some of the that lilting, I wondered how much of that's real and how much of it is him faking. Because sometimes I wonder, it's like, does he really need to have fresh meat to eat, or is he just getting Seymour to get him what he wants? Because if that's the case, he really is a monster. And
that's what we'll never know, because we can't know the mind of an alien monster.
But if he truly does need blood and fresh meat and all that to survive, there's a level of sympathy that can be allotted, but we don't know.
It's vague, and I would say that if you saw this ending, if you saw the director's cut ending, and you saw the way he treated the death of Audrey, where he had been laughing minutes before having her half in his mouth and trying to swallow her, he didn't have to let Seymour take her. This is a very strong plant. Did not have to let Seymour open the trap and pull Audrey out to go to have their scene on the dock. He chose to do that. He chose to give Seymour these last moments with the woman that he's always wanted, the object of his deal with the devil.
Yeah.
And so I'm not sure if it's another manipulation, or if, because he's been consuming mostly Seymour's blood this entire time, if there is some kind of symbiotic or parasitic connection between them, that maybe
a weird level of empathy, perhaps.
Yeah, like he has been growing on Seymour's DNA this entire time. Is he a little bit of Seymour?
Yeah, maybe. But then Seymour runs out, climbs a building, is intent on jumping off. Then he meets Paul Dooley,
Patrick Martin, licensing and marketing.
Yes, our plan's public domain. And then that's when Seymour realizes, what? It's been about world domination, of course, this entire time. So then he goes back down to the shop, ignores Mr. Dooley, and basically says, you were just doing this to take over the world the whole time. And he's like, well, you finally figured it out. And so then it becomes, I think, in this version, for Seymour, it's a little bit of, I have to stop you, and I need to avenge Audrey. I think there's a little bit of that. But the scene that follows, the tone feels like Audrey 2's toying with him.
Oh,
the
absolutely.
Entire time. He's doing things to try to stop Audrey, but he's toying with him the whole time.
Especially when Seymour grabs the revolver and Tui does not move, lets him shoot him, and the bullets are bouncing off of his pod. And you can see the look in Seymour's faces. Oh God, I let it go too long.
Yep.
I should never have allowed him to get this big.
Yep.
Because now he's invulnerable.
Yep.
Supposedly.
Yeah, supposedly. And then it ends in a very long, drawn-out sequence with the end of the song. I love how Audrey, too, grows his own backup singers. That's kind of funny, actually.
Absurd and fun, and it is part of the musical where he does that. And it's the faces of the people he has previously
And it's that scene right there wwhere I look at that and I say, Kazuki Omori saw this, didn't he? Now I understand where Biolante came from. Biolante is Audrey, too. Let's be honest, Biolante's Audrey, too. Probably didn't see the director's cut, but what's funny is he basically made the director's cut without knowing about the director's cut.
And that's brilliant. Well, maybe he looked up the source material, looked up the play, and realized that the plant won at the end.
Yeah, I don't know. But, it's just kind of funny how that works out, because there are times like I watch Godzilla versus Biolante, and I'm like, I need Mean Green Mother to play. Someone make that fan edit for me. I want I want someone who is... Kaiju Kim, here's a project for you. You are a master of editing. I want you to take Biolante footage and, with your magic, make Biolante sing Mean Green Mother from Outer Space. That would be the best thing on YouTube. Anyway. Now, like I said, there's this long drawn out sequence where it's long and it's drawn out. You just see Seymour's just look of horror as he is slowly pulled into the maw.
And yet, look at the way it's lit. It's lit as if it's beatific.
Mm-hmm.
The light is from above coming down, lighting Seymour, not Tui, but lighting Seymour as if he is going to his just reward, quote unquote.
Yeah, which is how Ashman felt about it.
Exactly. He's getting what he deserves.
Mm-hmm. This is the end of the law. This is the consequence of your Faustian bargain. He eats you. Now, Tui does kind of joke about, it's like, why don't you come in here to see your dentist and Mushnik?
Yeah.
So now I guess the same thing could apply to Seymour as well. And if that wasn't bad enough, then there's that little extra gut punch where he spits out the shattered glasses.
Now, this is different than the stage play. In it, at the end, Seymour is doing his best to try and damage Tui and is unable to because he can't get through the thickness of the pod. And so he grabs an axe and says, I know, you're weaker on the inside. I'll just cut my way through you. And Tui opens up.
So it's Pacific Rim.
Yeah,
I remember that now, actually.
The pod closes, and then he spits the axe out because obviously it's not meat, so he doesn't want it. So yeah, it's a slightly different take, and I kind of like the movie version better, just because even though it's long and drawn out, like it's an inevitability. You're gonna die. Mm-hmm. It's inevitable. Mm-hmm. I am inevitable, as Thanos would say.
I am inevitable.
I am Seymour. Damn, why didn't it work? So yeah.
Yeah, we find out after that all of the leaf cuttings were another little plans. We get a Black Friday scene with crazy consumers, and they're all buying the things. I'm like, it's the Funko Pops. The Funko Pops are taking over the world, and the Beanie Babies. This is all before any of that.
It's more like the rush for the Cabbage Patch Kids.
Yeah, at that time. Yeah. And then we get the big kaiju sequence where the payoff to the Faustian bargain is everybody suffers.
And it is long. It
goes on for a long time. And so, I mean, the music is fun. There's a tribute to Patton with the three girls in front of the American flag. The music is good, but there's a part of me that looks at this and I'm just like, as cool as this is, Frank Oz, this does go on for a really long time.
Yep.
So I don't want to call it indulgent. And I hate to call it overlong because the special effects are so incredibly fun to watch. But it takes 10 minutes to hammer away one plot point. How bad it is,
yeah. how ineffective the military is, how everybody's getting eaten. The dog survives, though. The dog keeps running away, so I found that.
Yeah, but that was shown to test audiences. They did not like it. They turned against the movie when Audrey died.
Yep.
And...
like 180.
Yeah, like there. Like they said that they were with it. They were cheering. They were invested in these characters. They were laughing. And then Audrey dies. And for Frank Oz just said the room just went frigid. It was a refrigerator. It was like nothing for the last 20 minutes. And then when they got reports back, when they score it, you have to get at least a 55% to get a quote-unquote recommend. They got a 13. They made that many people angry. They did not like it. And so he had to make a decision, and it's just like, we have to do a happy ending, which Ashman and Menken did not like. They're like, no, you can do it. And even Frank Oz said he didn't necessarily want to do it, but he said this taught him something. This taught him something, and I think this is just fascinating. We're going to get into a little bit of theory here, I think, literary theory, but it's just so fascinating to think about this. He said, like, because the mediums are different, the audiences are a little bit different, and the expectations are different. Now, he said, like, you can't do a happy ending for every movie.
No,
he's not saying, like, always do a happy ending. But he said here was the problem they were running into. You mentioned the close-ups. By doing those close-ups, because when you're watching a play, you're not, even if you're in the front row, you're not that close.
No, you're at least 15 feet away.
Yeah, there's still a gap between you. But because this is a movie and he's doing close-ups, we're seeing the characters up close. We're seeing the nuances of their expressions and their emotions. And by doing that, the audience is getting really, really invested in these characters, probably even more so than, I mean, I don't want to disparage stage performances because they're amazing. I love them. But there's a level of intimacy there that creates a greater attachment. So the audience was very, very invested in these characters. And the other difference is that even if you have in the stage play, there's the tragic ending, but then the cast comes out and does a final bow. So the audience gets to see them again one more time. In a movie, you don't get that. When the characters are gone, they're gone.
I just want to point out, you're talking to an actor.
Yeah. I know.
You're talking specifically a stage actor originally.
Yes.
So I know firsthand exactly what Oz was talking about.
Yeah.
When you were on stage and you were getting that immediate emotional reaction from somebody, if I am in a drama and I have to say something tragic and horrible about my life, or someone has died or whatever, if I listen carefully and try not to let it affect me or break character, you can hear people crying. You can hear people gasping. If I'm in a comedy and I say the right line in the right way to elicit a response, the laughs will not stop. Now, granted, you have to kind of hold. It's called hold for laughs. And until they start dying down. The minute they start dying down, you continue with your lines. That immediate reaction, that immediate thing is the juice for a stage actor. I mean, that's what
that's the appeal of live performance like that.
Exactly, because every live performance is different as well. So someone who saw it Sunday night or Saturday night is not going to be the same person who sees the Sunday matinee. That being said, again, when you're doing a god-awful tragedy and everybody is dead, if you do, say, Titus Andronicus from Shakespeare, there are...
Or any of his tragedies.
Specifically Titus Andronicus, because there are 47 acts of murder and mayhem that are committed on stage in front of the audience. And they are horrific. There are beheadings, there are people's tongues being ripped out, hands ripped off. Just, it goes on and on and on. And if you are left with that and you don't see those performers at the end, and if it is done right, it is not something to leave an audience with. And so to have the cast come out and say, hey, we're okay, this was just a play, it is a relief. It is, the audience has gone through a catharsis, and that is a very Greek thing. You are filling yourself up with the emotions of what you are seeing and allowing the negative emotions to be released into the ether and not to bother you anymore. It's almost a religious experience. At least it was for the ancient Greeks. So contextually, for modern audiences, they need to see that everybody is all right, that they are safe, and that what they have just seen is not what really happened. And movie audiences don't get that cathartic release. They may have cried, they may have laughed, they may have been in shock, but if the movie ends with, especially a musical comedy, ends on a down note.
Even something as dark as this gets at points.
Exactly. They're not getting that switch flip at the end that says, oh, no, Rick Moranis is still okay. Look, he's right there. Or, oh, there's Ellen Green. She didn't get eaten by a plant. Because they come out on stage. And Oz is he's a consummate performer. He understands that. And even, I mean, because with the Muppets, they're not performing before a live audience except other people working for the Hensons. So they didn't have that same, because all the laughter was canned, obviously. they didn't get that. They didn't get that immediate response. But he understands that because they're doing it as a performance on a quote unquote stage at the Muppet Theater, that's what they would be expecting.
Mm-hmm.
And anytime they've taken the Muppets outside of their filming, they would get immediate responses. So obviously he would understand that.
Mm-hmm.
And I appreciated that. I mean, I understood the choice. I prefer the darker ending because it is the original intent.
Mm-hmm.
But by that same token, I wasn't unhappy with the reshoots.
Mm-hmm. Because they had to spend a lot of money to do it. It cost a couple $1 million to do it. They had to rebuild the sets, get all the actors back together. Well, and they didn't get all of them because they couldn't get one of the chorus girls. But in the new ending, after Audrey collapses, she gets back up, and then they meet Jim Belushi.
Yep.
The same plot point at that point happens, but Audrey doesn't die.
Mm-hmm.
And he realizes, oh, Audrey 2's trying to take over the world. So then he goes back, and even though a lot of the same footage is still there, they filmed some new stuff that and inserted it that does change the tone, because then it comes in and it's big dang hero time. He goes in there and he's like, I'm going to stop you. As opposed to him saying things in the original. There's like, you ate the only person I ever loved, and things like that. So now it's just like, it's big dang hero time. I'm going to take you out. And so there's more defiance there.
Yes, he has found his nerve.
Yes.
Because something that he loves has been threatened.
Yes, he goes through, to use another classic literary Greek thing, it's the hero's journey. He has come full circle now. And just like we mentioned in some of the Faustian bargain stories, something like there's one I didn't bring up that's a literary example, but I remember reading this in high school, a short story called The Devil and Daniel Webster.
Yes.
Where it's a Faustian bargain, but thanks to Daniel Webster, who's a lawyer, he's able to get around it. Makes me glad I'm friends with a lawyer. Let's just say that.
Of course. I mean, you kind of get into some dicey things here.
Yeah. Sometimes I feel like I may have made a Faustian bargain or two.
That was last season. You're fine.
Yeah, hopefully. Although overtures have been made. We'll say that. Anyway. So he goes in there and a lot of the same things happen, but then where that shifts is instead of grabbing Seymour and eating him, he collapses the store, and you think he dies under the debris, but he actually grabs a live wire, and then one of the only other optical effects in the movie hits the live wire on Audrey 2. Audrey 2 swears as his final words, which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
And
makes perfect sense.
Yep. Oh, Jet Jaguar. And
oh, Jet.
Oh, Jet. And then he explodes. And then the last scene is Audrey and Seymour get that happy middle class suburban life that they always wanted. Fence. The white picket fence and everything. Now, Frank Oz still snuck a little bit of, foreboding in there.
He had to. You
had to, because that is the play. So they go in there, and then the camera pans down to the flower bed. There's one of the tiny Audrey 2s looks up and smirks at the camera. So we still kind of get the fourth wall break there a little bit. Yeah. Because even if you just do something as simple, if you're an actor and you look at the camera, that is considered breaking the fourth wall. You're addressing the audience. You're not supposed to look at the camera.
Unless you're Deadpool.
Yeah, unless you're Deadpool. But you're not supposed to look at the camera when you're acting.
No, absolutely not.
In a film,
unless it's specific that you are supposed to face the camera and not blink.
And it's like a POV shot from another character, or it's meant to be a fourth wall break. But so there's a lot of the same elements, but it's that happy ending, and that made the audiences for the movie happy. And Frank Oz said, I didn't want to do this, but I understand why I had to.
Yes. And the worst part, he said, was calling Conway and telling him everything you've worked on has to be cut.
Yeah, that had to be the worst part, which is so funny because when they found enough of the footage, because did you know that the original DVD for this movie got recalled?
Yeah,
because of the content of it.
Yep. And that's just, wow.
And then in 2012, they managed to find enough of a workable print, because before it was just a black and white work print.
Mm-hmm.
And they found enough of it that they could actually restore it. And we talked about, they used some digital effects to polish it up and get it ready, but they had to make new sound effects because they didn't make sound effects for it. They had to add music because the music hadn't been made. They basically restored it, put it out on Blu-ray, edited it into the movie so you can watch either version. And so you can see basically the original intent, and you can see those special effects. And as said, Frank Oz said it was so funny, he actually got to do the opposite. He called Mr. Conway at that point and said, "Hey, I'm putting it back in."
And Conway was all, "Okay, great, let's get it.
Yep.
Let's do this."
And then, funny enough, that version did get screened at a theater, at a film festival, actually, in 2012. And Frank Oz prepared himself for a negative reception like the first time. And actually, no.
Different world.
Yeah,
Different
people actually cheered when you got to the big kaiju scene. And he just concluded, it's like, movie audiences are a lot more cynical now.
Yep. Absolutely we are. I mean, I grew up in the Disney Pollyanna world, and I never liked it. I was the guy who liked the dark comedies. The Little Shop of Horror. I'm not a big musical fan. I'm not a big Rodgers and Hammerstein's fan. I don't like the syrupy, gooey, everything's going to be all right kind of comedy musicals. This is one of my favorite musicals, both for stage and for movie. And Stephen Sondheim did one called Sweeney Todd, the Demon Barber of Fleet Street,
which got made into a movie with Johnny Depp.
That one's not that great. Go see the stage play with Angela Lansbury as Mrs. Lovett. Those are the kinds of things that I enjoy as musicals, and I would be terrible to see a movie with as a preview audience, because unless it was dark and twisted, I was like, no, I don't like this at all. Give me some meat. Give me something to chew on while I walk home and go, oh God, I'm questioning everything in my life.
Yeah, but like I said, it does fit with that Faustian bargain tradition. Just depends on which version that you look at. I think both endings have their strengths and weaknesses. It really just depends on what do you want to get out of it.
How are you feeling today? I feel now that digital media is available wherever we want it, wherever we need it. It is really do I want to be uplifted, or do I want a depressing ending?
Yeah. Yeah. And it just kind of boils down to that, because I will admit, I watched both endings in preparation for this, and both worked for me for different reasons.
Absolutely.
Now, because there's a part of me that's just like, I am rooting for Seymour and Audrey. Stick it to the plant. But there's also a part of me that's just like, it also makes sense for this to end as a tragedy and be that cautionary tale.
And it's unique among kaiju or monster movies that if you take it out of when it was made in 1986 and put it into the 1960s, it is very rare for monsters to win. And if we take it just at its face value, this is an outlier. The monster won? Are you kidding me? What the heck? In 1960? Oh, no, it never happens. Never happens. Because that belongs to a much more cynical time, which is the 1980s. But it was too cynical for its time period even then, which is ironic considering that it was 16 years later, it was considered perfect. Yeah, we love the nasty ending. Perfect. Yeah, let everybody die. We don't care.
Funny how that works. No, it's 26 years. 2012.
No, 26 years. Yeah, right. Sorry.
Yeah, I know.
Mea culpa again.
Yeah. Theater major. We talked about this the last time. Not a mathematician.
No, don't do math.
Yeah.
That's why I deliver mail. That's reading. It's not math.
You might want to talk to people about the delivery system around here. I'm just saying.
I keep telling you, we can't do drones on the island. It's a little too dicey.
Yeah, a little dicey. Yeah. Yeah, sure, Jimmy. Yeah, your drones are better, but they won't use them. We get it. But anyway, at least they're good for cameras. I know that much.
This is true.
Yeah,
this is true.
But yeah, like I said, I think both are legitimate. I know there's probably going to be people who are going to be a one camp or the other, but I am one of those people who says they both work. I really do think they both work.
Yes, they do. And I genuinely love both versions of it. And again, as I said before, I listen to this soundtrack a lot, and I prefer it to, because I saw this first, I prefer it to the Broadway or off Broadway or whatever it is. I do miss the other songs, but some of, like, Mushnikin-san tends to slow the progression of the play when you're watching it. And it's there to hide a scene change and costume change. I know that's because Audrey does change clothes an awful lot in the stage play. So her and the Greek chorus, a lot of costume changes between those four girls, and some of the songs are put there specifically for that, which happens a lot in musical theater.
Yeah, yes, it does. It's one of the conventions.
Yes, it's the accepted trope.
Yes. Because sometimes you get, the tropes exist for practical reasons.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which makes translating it to movie a little different, which is why I think they got rid of some of the songs. What to tighten it up a little bit more, just focus on certain specific beats that they wanted.
That's for sure. Well, that was wonderful, and went a little longer than I was expecting, and yet didn't go and yet I did expect this, I should say.
There's still stuff I can talk about.
Oh, there's still stuff we could both talk about. You get a pair of English majory people together talking about this, and just wow. Papers are coming out of this. And Jimmy is going to be very busy with his blog. I'm just saying.
I'm sure he is. I mean, I made some little snafus, so I'll be called out on that, I'm sure. Right, Jimmy?
You got caught all on one. I mean, that's a badge of honor around here. You are a real MIFV guest at this point. You have been corrected by Jimmy.
Oh, good. I was worrying about that. I just wish I had gotten to on air. I know I'll probably give it to Jimmy as on the way out, but I have a list of all the principal plant operators, and there are 21 principals and 21 additional performers who worked the plant during the live action scenes that were filmed, and they desperately need to shout out. So I can give this to Jimmy on my way out. But there is one person I was going to
say, if you have a few to mention, please mention them.
I've got one person, and I think he stands head and shoulders above all the rest. We must not forget the most important person on the entire crew, above Frank Oz, above the players, above Menken and Ashman, and above Conway, who did the special effects. This is the unsung hero, David Allen, who was the physical therapist for all the operators. Due to the strenuous and back-breaking positions they had to contort themselves into just to bring Audrey 2 to life. David Allen, dear God, man, you were busy. And I honor that. You're a hero.
Indeed. Indeed. But now, Damon, we have come to one of the most exciting parts of the show, the Patreon shout-outs. Go show Travis Alexander,
Danny DiManna,
Eli Harris,
Chris Cooke,
Bex from Redeemed Otaku,
Damon Noyes, yeah.
He's a mean green mother. The Cel Cast,
Eric Anderson.
You're starting to sound a little bit like Mr. Gamora over at the Marketlight Lounge. I'm just saying.
Oh, no. I don't have his golden tones.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm just saying. Ted Williams, TofuFury. Do you feel pumped up?
It feels so good to talk about TofuFury.
Okay, we're done.
I must get to the chopper.
Get to the chopper.
God, that was terrible. I really must not feel well.
Those beta site allergies, man. I'm just telling you.
Maybe that mean green mother actually gave me something.
Oh, yeah. You might want to have a talk with him. Or you could go ask Dr. Dourif for some home remedies.
I'm gonna say no on that one. I think I'll just get some allergy analgesics from the corner market.
Yeah, probably a good idea. But now I need to let everybody know, it's going to be a little bit busier around here because we got a couple of bonus episodes coming up. So, first off, we have the actual 5th Wednesday bonus episode, which will be Beware the Blob, a.k.a. Son of Blob.
Scared me there.
Yes. But, that's how it's written. Beware the Blob. With Travis Alexander, my co-host in common. So he will finally get to see the goo. And I hope it's the real goo this time.
As long as he doesn't touch it.
Yes, that's very important. Very important. But we keep the blob in an ice bucket. It's on display here from the good people of Pennsylvania for the next couple of months.
You know, he's just chilling, man.
Yep,
just
chilling. And
chilling
then, because I and my friend Elijah Thomas, my fellow podcaster over at Kaiju Conversation, share a birthday with the great Ray Harryhausen. We just had to. We are going to be starting a new annual tradition. We are calling Monster Conversation Harryhausen Annual. This will be the first of those. And because I asked Elijah, how do we want to do this? Because I've already covered a couple of Harryhausen films on the show. And he said, let's be weird and go backwards. Okay. So we're starting at the end with Clash of the Titans from 1981. Can't wait.
Chef's kiss of a movie. Just
it is fantastic. It really, really is. And then Amerikaiju continues next month.
Ooh.
We're making a big time jump. We're going from the 50s to 2007 with Cloverfield and my friend Nick Hayden. He'll be coming back to the island.
Well, okay.
Not everybody likes Cloverfield, and that's okay.
It's it made me sick the first time I saw it in the theater.
And that happened to a lot of people. I understand that. I
mean, but watching it at home, it's a little bit easier to kind of look away and not be hurt by the shaky cam.
Really, Jimmy? Looking at Clover on the island made you sick?
Well, you have to remember that Clover isn't exactly full grown yet.
Which is mildly terrifying.
Maybe it'll lose the gangly, kind of gross, gray, skinny thing going on.
Or it'll just turn into a Muto.
That would hurt. That would really hurt.
Possibly.
Yeah.
But anyway, now we come to one of the most important segments of the show, shameless self-promotion. So I'll just quickly tell everybody, go listen to my spinoff podcast, Henshin Men and The Power Trip. That's all I'm going to say, because I want Mr. Noyes here to take center stage.
Well, I don't have anything new since I've been on the island for 2 weeks. So I'm just going to reiterate what I did the last time I was here, which is that I was in a movie in 2020 and it premiered this year. And now you can see it streaming on demand on Vimeo. It is called Maxi. It is a stark, unflinching look at two young adults going through drug addiction. I have a small part at the very end as the title character's father. You can also get a promo code, which is capital L Lane, Lane, capital C County. It is all one word. And that will get you $1 off your viewing if you are so inclined. The other project I had was a short 12 to 13 minute film, independent film called Off the Road, which is about 3 friends go have a little drinking party up in the mountains and meet a stranger who is not everything that he seems. And I'm that stranger. Hi, how you doing? And that you can find on YouTube under Off the Road Hewlett Artistry.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go.
Alrighty, I'll be sure to post all of those things in the show notes, because I'm telling you right now, people, I know not everybody actually pays attention to show notes and podcasts. This is one where you should. I insist. Unfortunately, Apple's a little bit goofy. It doesn't always post all of them, which makes me mad, but you should, because not only do you get links like this, you also get to see my bibliography with all of my sources, so you too can dive deeper into these movies.
And boy, are there a lot of sources. Oi.
Yes. Quite a few. But I want to thank you once again, Damon, for stopping by and taking over the show for a month.
Oh, no. Please. The pleasure was all mine. But I want to thank you, because from just being a listener to being asked to fill in a blank spot you had way back during Gamera versus Gyaos.
Gyaos.
And then the honor of being called back constantly it's a thrill. I love it. It's, as an actor, it fulfills a need that I have, and just as a human being and kaiju lover, and being able to talk about these things that are near and dear to our hearts is just a treasure. I love it.
And I mean, I don't want to say too much about this, but apparently you've also felt a little bit inspired about starting your own podcast, and I look forward to seeing that.
An inkling, yeah. I am. It's a slow process because I'm not a procrastinator. I just like to have all my ducks in a row before I make anything.
Yeah, I understand. But that will be something to discuss the next time you come on the show. And yes, he is slated to come back. Won't say when, but he's coming back.
Probably multiple times as far as that goes.
Yes, quite. Anyway, Jimmy, cue the credits. Thank you for listening to the Monster Island Film Vault, a podcast produced and hosted by Nate Marchand. If you want to join the discussion and be heard on the show, we'd love to hear from you. So email us at feedback@monsterislandfilmvault.com. Our website is monsterislandfilmvault.com. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Monster Island Film Vault, and on Twitter, where our handle is @TheMonsterIsla1. You can subscribe to us on YouTube, Spotify, and TikTok. Follow Jimmy from NASA on Twitter at NASAJimmy, and our many other colorful characters using the links in the show notes. The podcast logo was created by Tyler Souls from TylerDrawsComics.com. Our theme song is Wanderer on the Offensive, live edit by B33J, Sarax, Juan Madrono, and Nonsensical Lexus, which is a remix of Counterattack Battle with the Colossus and The Opened Way Battle with the Colossus by Kootani from the video game Shadow of the Colossus. All film and audio clips belong to their respective copyright holders, and no infringement is intended or implied. Please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and or Podchaser to spread the word about the show. You can also support us by joining MIFV Max on Patreon. The Monster Island Film Vault is a Moonlighting Ninjas media production. Sayonara!